and is intended for mature audiences.
People of Earth, attention. People of Earth, attention. This is a voice speaking to you from thousands of miles beyond your planet. You're listening to the Martian Revelation. Strap in tight.
Look, I love Gary. He's fantastic.
Good job you're doing. Boy, what a good reputation. Thank you very much, Gary.
Go to www.thefacesofmars.com. That's www.thefacesofmars.com.
According to a new report in the New York Times, the U.S. government may have physical evidence of, and we're quoting, off-world vehicles not made on this earth.
And as I say, in the words of the world's greatest detective, how often have I said to you that when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth.
Surely the days of the great Martian Revelation are upon us,
which nobody has ever seen before. When China looks at woke and they see the biggest problem we have is Dr. Seuss, in the meantime, they're building factories and trying to kill us in so many different ways. They laugh at us. They think we're so... Frankly, they think our country is stupid.
COVID-1 clearly originated in China, and we were fortunate to escape a major pandemic. So we really had to learn a lot more about the viruses that were there, about whether or not people were getting infected with bad viruses. So in a very minor collaboration, as part of a subcontract of a grant, we had a collaboration with some Chinese scientists. We had a collaboration with some Chinese Frankly,
they think our country is stupid. In the meantime, they're building factories and trying to kill us in so many different ways.
And what he conflates COVID-1 clearly originated in China, and we were fortunate to escape a major pandemic. So we really had to learn a lot more about the viruses that were there, about whether or not people were getting infected with bad viruses. So in a very minor collaboration, as part of a subcontract of a grant, we had a collaboration with some Chinese scientists. We had a collaboration with some Chinese Frankly, they think our country is stupid. In the meantime, they're building factories and trying to kill us in so many different ways. And what he conflates virus, which is the most ridiculous, majestic leap I've ever heard of.
Do not risk incurring the anger of the Chinese government because they are ruthless.
Let's go, Brandon.
Brandon, I agree.
You got the vaccination?
Yeah.
Are you okay? I mean, you seem no, it works. Or or the mom and dad, or the neighbor, or when you go to church, or when you're. I really mean it. There are trusted interlocutors. Think of the people. If your kid wanted to find out whether or not there's a man on the moon or whatever, something, or, whether those aliens are here or not.
Shut the fuck up, okay? Shut the fuck up.
Come on, man.
He's shaking hands with the air. He's walking around somewhat bewildered. I'd say it's no good. And taking orders from the Easter Bunny. You saw that one? No. Joe Biden and the radical left Democrats have turned calm into chaos, competence into incompetence, and stability into anarchy, prosperity into poverty, and security into a catastrophe. You look at...
Wow. This is a classic example of white privilege, and you both have it.
What's that?
Anyone want to fill them in?
Yeah, I'll do it. Okay, so white privilege is when white people, particularly men, automatically assume they can take whatever they want. And they never have to worry about getting stopped by the police. And they have the inside track for any job
I've got this one, Aisha. They have the inside track for any job they want.
Exactly, Gage. Thank you for that. That's white privilege.
Whoa. And we have that?
You sure do.
I see.
Whoa. I never realized this stuff.
Yeah. You've really opened up my eyes.
Well, I'm glad we've been able to enlighten you. The real question is, do you think you'll be acting differently from now on?
I guarantee it.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
Step aside, please. We have white privilege.
Yeah, check it out. Don't worry, it's okay. We automatically assume we can take what we want, and we don't have to worry about the police. It's okay, you didn't know. They didn't either. Good stuff, yeah.
This is what we were taught, sir.
We're subverting existing paradigms.
This rules. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad we went to college.
Yeah, it's like now I have the skills for today's workplace.
Well, let's see. What should we take next? Let's take that car.
But that's a police car.
Beavis, you dumbass. Didn't you hear? We don't have to worry about getting stopped by the police.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Beavis, let's tear ass.
Yeah.
Cool. Sir, maybe you didn't know, but we have white privilege.
Get your hands where I can see them!
I think the problem is you're just uneducated.
Yeah, we're gonna get jobs on Wall Street.
Ain't that the truth? What a massacred American dream. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all you ETs out there in the byteways of the internet, and wherever you're at down through time monitoring this show. I'm Gary Leggiere, the Martian Revealer, known also as the Mad Martian, and I would like to welcome you all to the Martian Revelation that is upon you all again now. Welcome to the Bazaar. And today is July 9th of 2022, or the 10th, depending upon your time zone as it says through time. And you're listening to this broadcast through Global Enlightenment Radio Network stream, and hopefully also through the public streaming network stream and SoFlo, as well as through the Martian Revelation Show YouTube stream live at
www.thefacesofmars.com. That's www.thefacesofmars.com.
That's right, which everyone knows is your defense for the war which we all fight against the evil dark missioners, who are all leading you away from the light and the truth and manipulating you all instead to help you open your wallets and your pocketbooks, to only join their dark side in special clubs and their special subscriptions that only allows them more power to continue to mislead you all and to steer you all away from the truth that they themselves now wish to face or even admit to. Hell, let alone also even talk about.
Yeah, UFO Diaries, Faces on Mars. Cover up controversy down through time.
Huge conspiracy.
It is a conspiracy.
Okay.
But the Martian Revelation is, however, 100% listener supported, with no special clubs or any special subscriptions to join. So if you're a listener, please help support the Martian Revelation Show again, which is your only defense for that war which we all fight against those evil dark missioners. And we're trying to work with the goal each week to bring you the bizarre truth one show at a time. Again, we're trying to work with that goal to bring you the bizarre truth one show at a time. So please share the facesofmars.com link. And I must also ask you, although, that you please donate to the show, though, with anything that you could afford by clicking on that big red, white, and blue American donate button at the top of the show page to allow it to continue being here for you down through time. As it is because of you, the listener, which makes the Martian Revelation possible to be brought to you all back through time. So your listenership and your donation support actually counts, and it helps us all to not only fight, but to win against those evil dark missioners, as well as to secure a future which we all could literally make the Martian Revelation our reality. By what you say? By making our fate. Just remember also that if you're listening to this Martian Revelation Show, then know this, that you are the resistance down through time. So we got a pretty cool show for you all this week, as we're going to have return guest Frank Jacob on with us, talking about the Guardians of the Looking Glass, a tale of two timelines. So this is should be real interesting, and it falls right up in part of the reality of why this show and I, myself, have phased back through time, bringing you this now on this alternate timeline that which was created. So we're going to be talking about some of these things later. Frank's done a lot of work to bring this all forth to you and to think of the possibilities, as there are many. So talking about massacred American dreams, let's get into some news, and then the next hour we'll be bringing on Frank. And once again, mysterious cloud reappears above the Arcia Mons volcano on Mars. Listeners to this show could appreciate a couple times when the so-called mysterious cloud appeared in the Arcia Mons. And many people were speculating and believing that it's the volcano spewing its gases. But it seems not to be so, according to the mainstream scientists. And this is from July 3rd. NASA has recently captured another encounter with the Martian cloud, which NASA claims is a new discovery. A new discovery? How? It's already been seen multiple times already. But the title states that this cloud formed directly from the red planet just above the Arcia Mons volcano. Many believe that the cloud was caused by volcanic eruptions. However, this theory was quickly disproved when geologists declared that the volcano had not been active for well over 50 million years. The volcano, which is also made of water ice, is therefore ruled out of being a potential source of this cloud. It was named the Arcia Mons elongated cloud as a result of the bizarre encounter. The team of experts who examined it once more deemed it unexplainable and unknown. Unexplainable and unknown, but yet they want to explain it as being a natural source. Okay, and how come it's unexplainable? But George Hernandez Bernal, a doctoral candidate at the University of the Basque Country, said that this phenomenon has been around for a while and that experts are excited about the possibility of finding out what caused it. They know that it reforms about once a year and lasts for around 80 days before it stops growing. At its height in late September 2018, the cloud covered approximately 1,500 kilometers of the planet's surface. The cloud began to recede around mid-October after having lasted around 80 days. The Mars Express was the one to discover it. However, no one knows the reasons for its discovery. The Mars Express was the one that discovered it, but yet how many years and how many probes have been orbiting Mars from NASA, including the MRO, and you're going to tell me that it hasn't discovered this? Mars Express was the one that brought it forth, announcing the discovery. You see the problem there? So that's pretty interesting. And also published 3 days ago, a Mars sailplane prototype soars during early-stage tethered flight tests in Arizona. Researchers want to know more about the red planet's enigmatic geology and thin atmosphere. It's enigmatic geology. It's interesting geological features, and I will say interesting archaeological features. But an early-stage Martian sailplane soared aloft, tethered to a balloon, as engineers pondered the possibilities to expand red planet flight. The University of Arizona released a progress update on its sailplane project June 30th in conjunction with a recent journal publication exploring Mars exploration using motorless sailplanes. Drone flight has been tested successfully on Mars already. The Ingenuity test helicopter that landed with NASA's Perseverance Forever rover in February of 2021 is over a year and almost 30 flights into what was supposed to be a month-long 5-flight campaign, and it's still going. But as pathfinding as Ingenuity is, its capabilities are limited. It can only fly for 3 minutes at a time and only as high as 39 feet. Sailplanes, if proven, might be able to fly further and faster using horizontal wind speeds that blow swiftly at higher altitudes of Mars, Arizona team members said in a statement. Well, you better send a few there instead of just one. Send 3, at least. But now the team says it has an early-stage design of the sailplane and it has put that design on a high-altitude balloon. Later in the summer, officials stated researchers will test experimental planes at about 15,000 feet above sea level, where Earth's atmosphere is thinner and flight conditions are more akin to those on Mars. If deployed on the red planet, the sailplane could fly tens of meters or feet above the surface to nab higher resolution imagery than is available today from satellites in orbit. Indeed, think of that going over the face of Cydonia and other interesting archaeological and interesting geological features. But the proposed 11-pound vehicle would be filled with flight, temperature, and gas sensors, along with cameras to image steep areas inaccessible to rovers, such as canyons and volcanoes. This is where all the exchanges between the surface and atmosphere happen. Alexandre Kling, a research scientist in NASA's Mars Climate Modeling Center, partnering with the university, said of the low-altitude region the sailplane would study. This is where the dust is picked up and sent into the atmosphere, where trace gases are mixed, where the modulation of large-scale winds by mountain valley flows happen. And we just don't have very much data about it, Kling added. The final stage design proposed in the peer-reviewed research paper published in the journal Aerospace on June 3rd suggests that the sailplane will be able to map surface features at less than 100 centimeters per pixel. That's just a bit smaller than the 4-pound Ingenuity's wingspan. Based on mathematical modeling for the sailplane's flight patterns, the team suggests their vehicle could stay aloft for as long as multiple days at a time using a technique called dynamic soaring. University officials compared the technique to an albatross's use of higher horizontal wind speeds at higher altitudes. Dynamic soaring would allow the sailplane to make use of energy, which is a limitation for the solar-powered Ingenuity, and may allow the sailplane to fly an extended mission. The main question in the design is, how can you fly for free? How can you use the wind that's there, the thermal dynamics that are there, to avoid using solar panels and relying on batteries that need to be recharged? Lead author Adrian Buscella, an aerospace engineering doctoral student at the university, said in the press release. The mission is not yet funded for Red Planet flight, but the team says it might be able to get ready in just a few years rather than the typical decades of planning the traditional Mars missions require. Of course, that's because it's based on a turtleneck sail pay speed policy agenda. But team members estimate that the cost of the sailplane would be $100 million or less compared with a NASA Discovery class mission of at least $300 million, similar in scale to the Mars Quake hunting Mars Insight lander in service since 2018, which again was a waste of time and money, and it was not equipped to do the job. A defining advantage of the sailplane concept over previous proposals is its simplicity, researchers wrote in a press release, noting the lack of an engine would be especially helpful as it does not create significant penalty on mass, complexity, and reliability to take flight. As for how the plane would get so high above the Red Planet, the balloon testing on Earth might be replicated for real on Mars. Sailplanes could be carried up high, then released when the wind conditions are ready to support a long mission. The sailplanes could even potentially redock on the balloon or blimp after a flight and go on to complete multiple missions, the researchers stated. That's a good idea. But even if the plane lands and is unable to get back into the atmosphere, it could take measurements from the surface as an impromptu weather station, they suggest. Well, maybe build it so where it is built to last, to where it doesn't have to land. It has to be staying afloat in a permanent basis. But the team ultimately hopes NASA will fund the mission and allow it to catch a ride on a large-scale Mars mission already in development, researchers added, saying that the sailplane could even fit in a small CubeSat-sized package. Again, don't rely on NASA, as they are not the future leaders in where we're going to go and what we're going to do in space. Ask Elon Musk and his big effing rockets. He's got the big effing balls also to help you bring there, and many more than just one. And it's to his advantage plans anyway of what you're planning that I think that he should hop on. It only makes sense. So let's go on to the next one. China's Mars orbiter has mapped the entire red planet, nailing key science goal photos. Really, they've mapped the entire red planet. Wow. And the resulting photos are stunning. Really, they're really being cheesy about showing us the Mars data and the imagery that they're getting. If they map the entire planet, I, for one, want to see some specific areas. Number one, mainly Cydonia, and see any and all the images that they acquired from there as well. But China's first successful interplanetary mission has completed mapping the red planet more than a year after its arrival. The Tingling-1 orbiter used its medium-resolution camera to image the surface of Mars. The spacecraft also completed science objectives assigned to the 6 other scientific payloads on board. This milestone means that both the orbiter and the Zhurong rover, which accompanied Tingling-1 on the trip to Mars, have now completed their planned scientific exploration tasks, according to the China Communist National Space Administration. But the agency also released new images that shows a series of surface features on Mars as captured by Tingling-1. So hopefully you'll be seeing some of them here. But Tingling-1 arrived at Mars in February 2021 and has completed 1,344 orbits as of June 29th, the Communist National Space Agency noted. The spacecraft initially began imaging portions of the surface of Utopia Planitia, an area pre-selected for the Zhurong rover's landing. That work aided a successful touchdown in May of that year. Once the rover was on the surface, the orbiter primarily provided communications relay support for the Zhurong until November, when the spacecraft altered its orbit to begin its own science program, including surveying the planet. Again, they're not kicking out with any mass amounts of image data for the public, not that I can see. If anyone could correct me on that or guide me to where that they may be, but as far as I know in my searches, I'm not finding them. Why? Once we ask, look towards Elon with. But the pair will continue their work before completing the primary objectives. National Space Agency officials wrote. Team Wing 1 will be used later this year for an aerobraking test using friction from the Martian atmosphere to slow down the spacecraft in preparation for Team Wing 3, a complex Mars sample return mission expected to launch in 2028. Team Wing 2 will bypass the red planet instead of collecting a sample from a near-Earth asteroid and studying a second space rock. The mission is currently targeting launch in 2025. Zhurong, which has traveled 6,304 feet on Mars, is currently hibernating due to the winter in Mars' northern hemisphere. The rover is expected to resume activity late in the year with the onset of local spring when its sensors detect high. Nice, and again, I wish the thing would fall off of a cliff and be destroyed, and how I wished that it just blew up on its way before delivering its package to the surface and orbiting the planet. The race is on, and they don't have the same ideas and goals that we have regards to Mars. They're our enemies. So let's go on to the next one. As SpaceX rolls the Starship big effing rocket prototype to launch pad ahead of orbital test flight. This was published 3 days ago. Ship 24 just made a big move. We may not have to wait too much longer for the first ever orbital test flight of SpaceX's Starship Deep Space Transportation System. SpaceX is developing Starship to carry people and cargo to Mars, the Moon, and other far-flung destinations. The system consists of two elements, both of which are designed to be fully and rapidly reusable: a huge first-stage booster called Super Heavy and a 165-foot tall upper-stage spacecraft called the Starship. Starship prototypes have conducted a handful of high-altitude test flights to date, but the vehicle is yet to go orbital. SpaceX plans to change that soon. The company is gearing up to launch an orbital test mission with the system, which will also mark the spaceflight debut of the Super Heavy. That's going to be a real interesting launch, huh? Birth of the Martian Revelation. And those preparations are ramping up. Ship 24, the Starship vehicle that will fly the orbital mission, just rolled out to the launch pad at Starbase, SpaceX's South Texas facility in Boca Chica, on July 6th. Ship 24 will launch atop a Super Heavy known as Booster 7. That rocket is already at the pad and may conduct a static fire test, a pre-launch trial in which a rocket's engines are lit while the vehicle stays anchored to the ground in the coming days. Both Starship and Super Heavy are powered by SpaceX's next-generation Raptor engine. The spacecraft sports 6 Raptors, and the booster features a whopping 33, as SpaceX showed in another recent Twitter post that shared photos on both vehicles with all of their engines installed. For comparison, SpaceX's workhorse Falcon 9 rocket incorporates 9 of the company's Merlin engines in its first stage and 1 Merlin in its upper stage, and Merlins are considerably smaller and less powerful than the Raptors. SpaceX recently cleared a significant regulatory hurdle on the road to Starship's first orbital launch. Last month, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration announced that SpaceX could continue its Starship work at Starbase, provided the company takes more than 75 actions to mitigate the effects of that work on the surrounding area, which is a biodiversity hotspot. There are other such boxes to check, however. For example, the FAA must still grant SpaceX a launch license ahead of the upcoming orbital attempt. And I'm telling you, they're stalling him, and they're busting his big effing balls. They're jealous, and they have their own agenda of a turtleneck snail pay speed policy agenda. Elon Musk does not see or want to adhere to that agenda, and neither do we the people. And in another article from July 8th, humanity will reach Mars in your lifetime, says Elon Musk. Here is how he plans to achieve that. Crewed missions to Mars have been Elon Musk's longtime goal, even before he started his aerospace company, SpaceX. Despite many people kicking the idea of sending humans to Mars, Elon Musk still maintains his ground on sending humans to the Red Planet. But how did Elon Musk plan to achieve a crewed mission to Mars? This article will enlighten you on how Elon Musk wants to accomplish a crewed mission to Mars before the end of this decade. On July 6th of 2022, Elon Musk had tweeted, "Humanity will reach Mars in your lifetime." This tweet generated a lot of attention as it reminds the science community that Elon Musk has not deviated from his plans of making humans a multiplanetary species. But how did Elon Musk plan to achieve this? His plans begin with the development of the SpaceX Starship big effing rocket. And since Mars is millions of miles away from Earth, Elon Musk knew that he needed a sophisticated space vehicle to cover such a long distance. As the development of the Starship got better with time, Musk knew that his plans to send humans to Mars were about to become a reality. Earlier this year, Musk revealed that the first humans will land on Mars in 2029. The science community, hoping to see humans explore Mars, celebrated this prediction. However, the first bold step towards achieving that goal is when SpaceX meets the FAA's 75 mitigations in order to be able to even launch it into its first orbital test flight. Again, NASA's jealous because Elon Musk has got a bigger effing vision because he's got bigger effing balls than they do in their turtleneck snail pace speed policy agenda that does not benefit America first or we the people. But since Elon Musk has stated that the first orbital test flight of the Starship will be coming up later in July, we all could see new hope for humanity to reach Mars in the 2029 timeline. If Elon Musk sends crewed members to Mars by 2029, this implies that SpaceX has a lot of work to do in terms of launching uncrewed cargoes in 2027 to prepare for the crewed mission. Of course, SpaceX has developed several Starships to meet their basic requirements of reaching Mars. If everything goes as planned, the first SpaceX Martian astronauts will be starting their training anytime soon. Ahead of this preparation, SpaceX has continued to test its Starships and work on other sophisticated technologies that Martian astronauts will use to explore the surface of Mars. With the effort the space agency is deploying, a crewed mission to Mars will happen in our lifetime. Better than the goals of the turtleneck slow-paced speed policy agenda of NASA and these traitors destroying our space program. But Elon Musk has been a fan of space exploration from an early age. However, he never made his intention known during his early career years. But in 2001, after the sale of PayPal to eBay, Elon Musk joins Mars Society's board of directors and made his intentions of colonizing Mars known to them. Awesome. Speaking of which, hopefully we'll have Dr. Robert Zubrin on next week. He did say contact him in July. Mars Society's board of directors was fascinated by this brilliant idea. Later that same year, Elon Musk designed a project he named Mars Oasis. Under the Mars Oasis project, Musk planned to land a small experimental greenhouse growth chamber on Mars. This growth chamber will have seeds with dehydrated gel. Musk's primary intention was to grow plants on Martian soil for the first time through the Mars Oasis. The legend realized he needed a rocket to send the growth chamber to Mars. So in October of 2001, Musk, alongside Jim Cantrell and Hideo Resi, traveled to Moscow, intending to purchase refurbished Dnepr ICBM rockets that could potentially send payloads into space. They met with Levackins and ISC Kosmotra, but their request was rejected by the space agencies. Musk and his team returned to Russia in February 2022, hoping to buy 3 rockets. The Russian space agency offered each payload to Musk at $8 million. They returned to the U.S. without accomplishing their goals. During the return trip from Russia, Musk came up with the idea of starting a space agency to fulfill his goal of reaching Mars. And try and notice it wasn't done in Russia. It was done here, in America, where this will help America be first. But on March 14th of 2002, Elon Musk established SpaceX with $100 million, which he realized from the sale of PayPal between 2002 and 2010. SpaceX developed several space vehicles to send crew and payload to Mars. These SpaceX Mars vehicles include heavy lift launch vehicles, space tugs, and Dragon capsules. The space agency also developed other space vehicles to send payloads and crew to low Earth orbit. However, its Martian vehicles have remained outstanding and unique. In 2016, SpaceX formally presented the Mars plan during the International Astronautical Congress. After this presentation, SpaceX renamed its Mars space vehicles the Starship. SpaceX has continued to improve in its Starship development since then. On Friday, August 6th, 2021, SpaceX successfully stacked its Starship SN-20 at the top of booster BN-4. This milestone made the space agency's Starship SN-20 break the record that NASA's Saturn V space vehicle heard since the 1960s. After attaining this milestone, SpaceX has continued to improve its Starship development while waiting for the Federal Aviation Administration's approval of the Starship orbital flights. And why do you think he would be getting flack and being stalled and being screwed with and kicked in his big effing balls? It's because this treasonous government is in deals and compromised by China. And it's not to China's advantage that Elon Musk succeed. And even other international collaborators and cooperationists of traitors and enemies. China's trying to copy Elon Musk, so they're definitely wanting to know everything of how Elon Musk is doing what he's doing. And definitely Russia wants them back. This last year, listeners of this show could appreciate. They said, "Come on over, Elon. We'll have some vodka together." And Elon basically said, "Nah." On June 13th of 2022, the FAA released their reviews, which include 75 mitigation actions SpaceX must take before the Starship commences with orbital test flights. Right, remember, they want their own SLS rocket to also succeed, as if it's going to beat Elon Musk or be somehow better or bigger than the big effing balls and the big effing rockets of Elon Musk. But SpaceX, Elon Musk, and everyone looking forward to when the Starship will take off celebrated this milestone. Musk even revealed that the first orbital test flight would be coming up in July. We are still looking forward to experiencing the first historic test flight before the end of this month. As of 2022, no humans have reached the surface of Mars. However, we have succeeded in putting rovers, orbiters, and landers to explore the hostile environment of Mars in search of alien life. Bullshit! They're not in the search of life. That's what they're telling us. They're only looking for possible signs of possible past life. They discovered life in 1976, and they want to withhold it and keep that true from us by not even sending light detection experiments aboard to replicate and even make more conclusive the discoveries from 1976 from Dr. Gil Levin's labeled release experiments and other experiments. But we will take this search to another level when humans land on Mars before 2040. Indeed. You see, Elon Musk is showing his big effing balls there and how NASA is not efficient as a national space program of we the people. Elon Musk is. SpaceX should be the national agency for we the people in the future. But who's going to Mars in 2024? Elon Musk has earlier planned to send humans to Mars in 2024, but he later adjusted this mission timeline to 2029, hoping his aerospace company would meet the mission requirements before the end of this decade. NASA, the Commie National Space Agency, and other space agencies hope to put humans on Mars before 2040. Let's hope they succeed. I can't believe those fucking words. Let's hope they succeed. What, NASA and the Commie National Space Agency and other space agencies that want to hope to put humans on Mars before 2040? Let's hope they succeed. By what? Kicking Elon Musk and his big effing balls? Throwing them these 75 other things to only add on to the turtleneck snail pay speed policy agenda and to create delays? So as if NASA and these other agencies will beat him to Mars? Bullshit. It says it right in this article. Let's hope they succeed. Doesn't say let's hope Elon Musk succeeds. But as of 2022, we are yet to send humans to Mars. You see, that's what pisses me off. But this implies that 2022 Mars colonization is not possible. However, SpaceX may successfully send humans to Mars by 2029. If they succeed, other space agencies may also put humans on Mars before 2040. See, there it goes to poke back at them to show that Elon Musk is going to beat them there. But from all indications, the future of humans going to Mars is already promising. And I will say is looking pretty secure one way or another. Wouldn't you agree? But crewed missions to Mars may take place before the end of this decade. Elon Musk has already predicted that the first humans will land on Mars in 2029. SpaceX, NASA, Commie National Space Agency, and other space agencies are working tirelessly to put humans on Mars before 2040. From all indications, their chances of succeeding are high. Again, given the better chances of succeeding for NASA and Commie National Space Agency, SpaceX, yes, was put in first in the 2029 timeline, showing their possible succeeding are high. SpaceX will be the first. It needs to be the first. It needs to be in representation of America first. Not NASA, and certainly not the Commie National Space Agencies. But Elon Musk has envisioned making humans a multiplanetary species, and he established a space agency to bring his vision to life. His recent tweet, "Humanity will reach Mars in your lifetime," has proven that Musk has not forgotten his goal of sending humans to Mars and has an added poke in the chest to the agencies that be out there that do not really want him to succeed and want to create delay, that his timeline is not on a timeline of a turtleneck snail-pace speed policy agenda. But he earlier predicted that the first humans would reach Mars in 2029. With the effort made so far, this dream may become a reality using SpaceX starships, big effing rockets. And what do you think about humans exploring Mars by 2029? I want to go. I need to go. I wonder if somehow, some way, I could become acquainted with him. I could become a valuable asset. I know where there's a lot of places on Mars where we need to go and where we should check out. That would be benefit to him and all of humanity, especially in getting many questions answered that likes to be obfuscated from we the people, especially by the Commie Space National Agency. So that being said, we have an article from June 29th I wanted to get into. I think it's fitting for now. Space travel will absolutely gut the environment, scientists warn. Okay, that's not good. Bullshit. Again, there are those that do not want us to go. Let's get into this. Space travel is undoubtedly one of the most exciting frontiers in science, especially now that there's significant private investment from companies like SpaceX, but it comes at a significant cost as well. With launch rates in recent decades tripling according to the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, as well as significant investments in space tourism, the damage space travel may do to the environment may no longer be as negligible as once believed. In fact, if we continue on our current course, projected levels of increased spaceflight would damage the ozone and increase annual temperatures in the stratosphere by up to 4 degrees Fahrenheit. A new study by a team of researchers led by Cooperative Institute for Research in Environmental scientist Christopher Maloney has found. Well, Christopher Maloney, that sounds like a bunch of baloney. But the most problematic byproduct of rocket launches, which the researchers focused on, is black carbon, otherwise known as soot, which absorbs sunlight and retains heat, according to NOAA. Rockets used in spaceflight currently release a baseline of 1,000 tons of the stuff per year. But assuming a tenfold increase in hydrocarbon-fueled launches within the next 20 years, which the regulator asserts is in line with current rocket launch growth rates, the researchers estimate that the resulting increase in temperature could cause changes in atmospheric circulation and reductions of the ozone, particularly in the northern hemisphere. But it's all right to keep on throwing those chemtrails around in the skies, like those aren't doing damage to the atmosphere and ozone. Who you bullshitting? But and that's a big problem, as the ozone resides in the stratosphere and is strongly affected by changes in temperature and circulation. Combine that with the fact that the stratosphere is sensitive to even modest increases in black carbon, and you have a recipe for disaster. We need to learn more about the potential impact of hydrocarbon burning engines on the stratosphere and on the climate at the surface of the Earth, said Maloney in a press release about the work. With further research, we should be able to better understand the relative impacts of different rocket types on climate and ozone. Spaceflight emissions are also potentially more damaging than airplane emissions, according to the NOAA, because they're the only form of direct human aerosol pollution present above the troposphere, where it can do the most damage to the ozone in particular. Although we're still sitting at around 1,000 tons of rocket soot per year, the projected 10,000 tons by NOAA doesn't seem very far off. Of course, it's possible that we develop cleaner methods of spacecraft propulsion, but even then, will that be enough to offset the projected industry growth? See, that's the problem. We don't intend to offset the projected industry growth. But while our sights are set on space tourism and landing humans on the moon, don't forget Mars, we might need to come back down to Earth, literally, and consider if it's worth the potential damage to our planet. Baloney, you're full of baloney. And you're not going to stop us from advancing into America's place and America's inheritance and heritage in the heavens. Speaking about taking away our rightful place, America's rightful place in the heavens, from July 3rd, China may be plotting moon takeover as part of its military space program, says NASA. For the first time, Chinese lander also successfully grew plants on the moon under its ambitious lunar mission, giving a competitive edge to NASA. China National Space Administration, the commie state-owned space corporation, may be planning a takeover of the moon as part of its military space program, NASA's administrator, Bill Nelson, has told newspaper Bild. During the interview, Nelson affirmed that the United States was involved in the space race with Beijing. And Nelson knew of this many years ago, even in the early 2000s when he went there to China's comparison Area 51 type space facilities. And he was given the warnings then. But of course they want to take over the moon. They want to take over all space and destroy America, let alone America's space program. They even have a place in space. But in 2035, he iterated, China will complete construction of its own moon station and will launch several moon programs. The 79-year-old NASA administrator acknowledged that the American Space Administration has, in fact, been very concerned about China's landing on the moon and its agenda of hijacking the moon. Well, who helped them there to do that? The traitors that helped destroy our American space program and our heritage and rightful place in it. That's who. But for the first time, China, Chang'e 4 lander successfully grew plants on the moon under its ambitious lunar mission, giving a competitive edge to NASA. Lunar biosphere experiment was conducted in partnership with 28 Chinese universities. Photographs released by the China National Space Administration demonstrated a budding cottonseed sprouting into a biological matter in the first instance of its kind. The lunar development marked the completion of humankind's first biological experiment on the moon. For China, ruling Communist Party's mouthpiece People's Daily said on Twitter, China managed to grow plants out of the rapeseed and potato seeds, but the cotton seeds were the first to sprout. Professor Liu Hanlang of Chengeng University was quoted telling South China Morning Post paper. In the first far-side landing, China's Chang'e 4 mission delivered the U-22 rover on Von Karman crater within the moon's south pole, Aitken Basin, a region where no human or NASA robot has ventured before. Beijing's secretive moon mission landed on December 7th of 2019. Another day that'll live in a different type of infamy, huh? But Chang'e 4 represented the first time that a country managed to land a soft lander on the far side of the moon, as well as deploy a rover to explore the lunar far side, Notre Dame planetary scientist Clive Neal reportedly said. In 1959, the far side of the moon was first imaged by the Soviet Luna 3 spacecraft, and hence there are Russian names for prominent far side features such as Mare Moscovinsk. And I'm sure I'm saying that name wrong. Past studies by NASA have revealed that the crust of the far side is thicker, likely making it more difficult for magmas to erupt on the surface, limiting the amount of far side Mare basalts. NASA has yet to land on this region of the moon, as it may be challenging to maintain communication with Earth due to disruption to radio signals. China became the first nation to bypass this issue by fixing a relay satellite on Chang'e 4 mission. The race is on, and again, it's an existential threat to we the people and America first and America's place in space, which is followed up a couple days later with another article. China furious after NASA accuses it of stealing the moon. The U.S. side has constantly construed a smear campaign. Tell us how you really feel, Bill. In an interview with German newspaper Bild, NASA boss Bill Nelson held some choice words to say about China's upcoming space exploration ventures, alleging, among other things, that the rival nation intends to pretty much steal the moon for itself. Gee, you think? We must be very concerned that China is landing on the moon and saying it is ours now and you stay out, he told the paper, which published his remarks on Saturday. Fucking commie chinks. But the NASA administrator additionally accused China of plans to destroy orbital satellites and even claimed that it's stolen technology from other countries. Indeed, which, to be fair, isn't a new accusation. China, as one might imagine, did not take the comments lightly. Of course not, especially when they bought much of our technology, especially given to them and bought from them or bribed from them or blackmailed from them by our treasonous leaders who helped to destroy this country and our space program, let alone of what they were able to steal. Let's add that. But the U.S. side has constantly constructed a smear campaign against China's normal and reasonable outer space endeavors, and China firmly opposes such irresponsible remarks, said Yao Jingjiang, the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman, during a Monday press conference. Much international attention is fixed on the moon right now. NASA and the Russia-backed China both have ambitious lunar missions underway, while speculation about economically feasible moon mining abounds. The U.S. enormously expensive Artemis missions, however, have already experienced their fair share of chaos-induced delays, which could very much result in Chinese astronauts beating America's to Earth's OG satellite, a reality that NASA, or at least its top official, must not be too excited about. China and Russia have also abstained from signing the Artemis Accords, a U.S.-led initiative that offers a vision of shared principles to loosely govern the many countries looking to stake new claims in the cosmos. And according to Bloomberg, China and Russia are looking to build an interplanetary alliance that rivals the America-led effort. Wake up, Nazis! We are at war and we are in a race. But in contrast with the U.S. lunar exploration project known as the Artemis Accords, which experts believe reveals its exclusive nature for mimicking a space-based NATO, read a July 3rd opinion piece penned in the Chinese government-backed publication Global Times. China and Russia's partnership stresses bring an advancement for all, with the vision of building a community with a shared future for mankind. Right, a shared future for mankind. Which mankind? Theirs? It doesn't sound very inclusive, but I do agree, like they're trying to shape it to be like a space-based NATO. Again, NATO's not even relevant or shouldn't be up there. They're not even relevant here. They're part of the Nazi world order, liberal world orderers for a one-world government and a one-world army. We don't want their claim or their high position in space. America must take its rightful place. America first. That's what that all comes down to. So with that, everyone, I would like you all to please
go to www.thefacesofmars.com. That's www.thefacesofmars.com.
That's right. And scroll on down the page. See the information for tonight's guest, Frank Jacob. Click on his link there for his website, as well as the links to some videos and study videos. There's many other things to do and see on the show page as you scroll down during the show or at your earliest convenience after the show. But I'm really looking forward to bringing back on our return guest, Frank Jacob. So as all you listeners to this show appreciate, we have a motto here: pack them and smoke them, because you're definitely going to need them when we come back on the Martian Revelation.
I'll be back.
Don't run. We are your friends.
Imagine that everything the U.S. government has told you about UFOs since Roswell has been a lie. Imagine that in a decade after Roswell, the government attempted communication with the aliens and succeeded. And after that, in absolute secrecy, things had gone far, far beyond this. Now imagine that tomorrow, the whole secret program is going to fall apart, and every terrible thing is going to come out. All we have left now is a prayer. Morning Star Pass, the collapse of the UFO cover-up, a fictional but unflinching and terrifying look inside the UFO cover-up, the secret government that supports it, and the world of the aliens themselves, and then how the whole secret kingdom ends. Morning Star Pass, a book that pulls no punches and does not sheath the sword unblooded. Morning Star Pass, plunging boldly where no other book has ventured, captures the whole wondrous nightmare that the UFO experience has become, from bizarre experiments performed on helpless abductees, to horrifying mutilations, to beyond, to the world of secret government supported by its own secret police, to the aliens in their secret bases, and finally to the beckoning stars themselves. The book does this by placing the cover-up, humanity, and the Earth in a real cosmos where humanity and its passions are a part of the universe, not an aberration on it. Then comes the fall of the cover-up, in a climax of violence and desperation to leave the human race facing the multi-hued stars with eyes open and seeking its place in them. The sands of time have run out for the cover-up, for against it, leading an army of investigators and warriors, comes Cassandra Chen, beautiful, driven, and doomed. Who can save her and us? You'll have to read it to find out. Morning Star Pass, The Collapse of the UFO Cover-Up by Victor Norgard. Get yours today. You can find this at www.firstbooks.com.
Children of light, and try not to get caught up in the egoic mind. There are many vices to keep you swimming in the illusion of time, to keep you from your best life, to keep you from the to shield you from your life, and to break you. They feed on your fear to survive. Ooh. Children of light, tune into what you know. Leave logic behind. May your heart be the guidance to free you from the dense illusion of time, to free you from your mind, to free you from the paradigm, to stand up for your rights, to lead you through your dark nights, that's so you can no longer fight. Ooh. I'll take it all inside. Turn darkness into light. Your pain will be the guide. Turn darkness into light. Now it can go. Now it can go. Now it can go. I take it all inside. Turn darkness into life. Your pain will be the guide. Turn darkness into. I take it all inside. Turn darkness into light. Your pain will be the guide. Turn darkness into.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Gary Leggiere, your host of Mars Revealer, known also as the Mad Martian. And, of course, you're still listening to the Martian Revelation. That's upon you all again now. So now that you packed them and smoked them, let's introduce our guest, Frank Jacob. And Frank Jacob is an international award-winning filmmaker, presenter, visual artist, musician and composer. Having teamed up with U.S. motion picture production company Screen Addiction, his recent films explore the frontiers of consciousness-raising subjects. In the film Solar Revolution, the Klaus Dorner Chronicles. God, I got to get Klaus back on the show as well. And Packing for Mars. In March of 2022, Frank broke a story about a mysterious group called the Guardians of the Looking Glass, who claimed to be a breakaway faction of the controversial Project Looking Glass, having resurfaced to help humanity avert upcoming disasters which exploded onto the internet. This time technology makes it possible to peer into the timelines, future probabilities, and more, and appears to be used by rogue elements in government as well as the elite to bring about a technocratic dictatorship. He followed up with A Tale of Two Timelines, a webinar that dives deep into the history and main protagonist of that story, which connects consciousness, ETs, CERN, artificial intelligence, time travel, interdimensional messages, the meaning of timelines, and an upcoming cosmic event with the power to propel mankind in the quantum evolutionary leap long predicted by indigenous peoples around the world. And I'm just starting to watch that Tale of Two Timelines myself. A little late on that, but that's okay. I got the man himself here, and it'll give me something good to do tomorrow, right? But as a presenter, Frank's multimedia presentations take his audiences deep down the rabbit hole into hidden history, transhumanism, artificial intelligence, secret technology, human evolution, timelines, as well as parallel worlds. Again, a lot of that stuff I have personal, relative experience as well as interest in, especially where this show and this new timeline that we're on, because of being phased back through time, puts us on this path to make our fate to usher into Martian Revelation. So I'm really looking forward to tonight's show, Frank. And this subject's rather got me excited, and I could tell that you're definitely excited by this subject as well. And thank you very much for being back on. It's been, wow, since 2019. You know, now Packing for Mars. So how you doing tonight? Or rather today, where you are.
Yeah, I'm doing great, Gary. Good to hear your voice. Love the way you did that intro. That's probably got to be the best intro I've heard in a long time.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I actually had to cut out some of that because I wanted to focus on more of this reflection. I think the bio that I used there, it perfectly explains who you are and what's going on. And again, this subject. But before we get into anything, I got to tell you, I just so ahead of time, just so you're alert. So when it happens again, and it will, I have a feeling, you carry on. You'll know what's going on. Just please ride the show. Each week, I got an infiltrator coming in, interrupting the show, causing problems to where my mouth stops, my sound stops, everything stops except for you guys. So that's why you can keep going. You'll hear me like cutting in and out. That's your cue to know that something's fucked up going on and for you to please control it. I got to tell my guest that now, because until I can solve this problem, it's going to continue on. But I'm going to promise you and everyone else, I ain't giving up, and I'm not giving in to you commies. And if this commie chink's doing it, more power to we the people, because we're going to come and we're going to stop you and we're going to pull your place from space. Aside from that, Frank, I got to apologize for that, but I got to give you the heads up so you know, so we have a flow here, you know. But again, you know, you seem excited about this subject, and again, as do I. You know, if you need, we could go an extra hour most. Up to 3 if needed. It depends on you. We got you for 2. But I think, who knows, maybe more will be needed, because a lot of people do not know really what this is about. And I'd like to know more about these Guardians. I know several months back I heard it mentioned, but I didn't follow up with it. It was a giddy thing, I thought. And to be honest, I just didn't follow up with it. Too much stuff going on. But you're bringing out, you're pushing it, and the importance of what their message is compared to then getting into actual what the looking glass is, and well, wherever you want to go, because you're writing this, you're on fire, and so is this topic, and hopefully those Guardians are appreciative of your work.
Well, I'd hope so.
Have you been in
I'm
touch
the one probably to blame for it getting out there to the level that it got out there at. It was never expected. You know, I didn't, at the beginning of this year, I never had any plans to go in this direction. And the way life is, sometimes things get, just delivered to you off the beaten path where you wouldn't expect to find it. And I just happened to, stumble on their website or their YouTube channel at a time when there was nothing going on. I think they'd been up for a couple of days. There were maybe 70 hits on their 70 views on their videos. And because of my background, having made Packing for Mars and being into this sort of fringe science topics like this, of course I had to click on it and check it out. And, it's pretty, when you come across it for the first time, most people that I think stumble on it, they're kind of like, holy shit, right? Because it's like pretty, they describe some pretty dire potential futures. And most people don't want to hear that, because most people in the awakening community are into all love and light and positive, and we're going to be on we're already in the fifth dimension, and the reptos are gone and all this stuff, right? You hear that all the time.
Oh, it's hard to know that, but everything going on in the world today. Mm-hmm. Well, it's definitely hard to see that going on in the world today, but I hear what you're saying, and that's all okay on them if that makes them feel comfortable. But then there's another reality, because what I caught from an interview with you about what these guys were saying, people would say, hey, that kind of sounds Q-ish type, or even before that, many years ago, listeners, or maybe some may or may not appreciate, of our previous guest Sword and his old writings as well. It's kind of reminiscent of these predictions, and also has that element of time travel applied to it. And even, again, my own potential connections thereof, because this is something I'm passionate about, and I love talking about it, but it's hard to, because of my reality or potential thereof, depending on how you look at these subjects, especially where it comes to alternate realities or alternate worlds, and this device and who knows what else that may be able to affect these other, not dimensions, but other worlds and other lives, and therefore altering other histories, or even merging them together. I think I even heard you, if I'm correct, sir, that could potentially be happening, and that more than one person or group has access to this type of technology. So I think it's very important. But could you tell us more about who these guardians are? Have you talked to them by chance? Have they got in touch with you and thanked you, and maybe want to take it to another level using you or other outlets, venues, or am I way off?
Well, what happened is, when I first saw their sites or their channels, there was an email there, and I just figured, I'm going to write, see what happens. You never know, right? That's the only way to get in touch. If that's their only option, then I used it, and I wrote them, and they got back to me. Oh. And they, at that time, were complaining that there wasn't enough action. They actually complimented me on my work, my film work, and said, we need more hits, we need more views. And so this was at a time where so then I wrote an article, and so that generated obviously this huge explosion. And so I wrote them, and again, I said, okay, well, you should be seeing a few more hits now, because I could see directly in relation to the amount of views that we were getting on the talk shows that I was on. The views were rising parallel on their channels, so it was very clear to see the correlation. And then I wrote them a second time, and I asked them also about one of the other, sort of characters that's out there with the looking glass material, because there was a big difference between the message that person had brought out 10 years earlier, namely a guy called Bill Wood, or calling himself Bill Wood, who actually has a different name, and the message they were putting out there. And they answered me that mail as well, and which was very interesting. And after that, I tried again to correspond with them, but then I believe they got hit by, a lot of heat fell on them, and their message began to go kind of wonky. they brought another video out. That video was very controversial. People were thinking, hey, that doesn't even sound like the same people. The wording's kind of strange. So they originally, to answer your question, they were putting themselves out as ex-military insiders that had worked on Project Looking Glass, and they had acquired a data set along with some of the others, because there were several, I guess, there was a core group, and within that core group, they, I guess, would be considered those people who are open more to using the information to help humanity, as opposed to using the information to manipulate the timelines to get themselves into a more beneficial situation for outcomes that they have planned. And that was very consistent, as I found out later when I began to do a lot more research for what you mentioned, the webinar, Tale of Two Timelines. I went into all of the material once again and started to break down, like who's who, what is their message. And so I concluded that I would have to say that the description that they gave themselves at least matches very closely to what the description is of the members of Majestic 12. I mean, in terms of, there were certain groups of Majestic 12 which had pledged allegiance to, satanic, kind of a satanic energy, Luciferian energy, and there were other members of Majestic 12 who were not, who were still part of secret societies, but they were not willing to go to that extent and pledge their families and firstborns and whatever, to Satan in order to be part of this group. But they still stayed in the group because they felt, hey, we're in this group, and so what if there's those others? We need to keep an eye on them, kind of thing. Like nothing like, if you want to, that saying, keep your enemies closer, so. Yeah. I believe that they are that group, and so they took a data set, as far as they described it, because they filmed all this stuff that they, the Looking Glass, as its name describes, is something to allow them to peer into timelines, and they began documenting those timelines, and it was through the description that the Guardians of the Looking Glass gave, which for me was one of the most interesting descriptions I'd come across, because none of the other participants in the earlier disclosures of Looking Glass went into that kind of detail in terms of how it works, and so it made sense, kind of the way the Guardians described it. And so they ended up getting a data set and they were going to take that data set and reveal it if necessary, because they saw that the ones that were controlling or in charge of the project had discovered that once they started tampering with timelines, they discovered that no matter what they did, their timeline always worked to their favor. So there was no point in tampering with it any longer. The only point was now to stop others from tampering with it. But they saw also that there were 3 years in which there was a potential break-off timeline, which would lead to a new, a different future, which they didn't want. And the years for that were 2012, 2016, and 2022. And seeing that 2012 and 2016 had come and gone, the Guardians of the Looking Glass decided, okay, well, it's 2022. There's been no official acknowledgement or announcement publicly of this technology and the information, which is what it was intended for. So we're going to have to break it. And they thought about how to break it, and then they realized the best way to do it is to put it out there to get it to as many people as possible. Hence the idea of maximum amount of views. And so that's kind of a little bit of the background, who they are, and my interaction with them. I've had no other direct interaction with them. I would have liked to, of course, but I also don't want to be like a fanboy, Looking Glass fanboy, Guardians, fanboy, because I still want to maintain the objective position of the observer, of the journalist. I think that's the most honest way and the most integral way that you can put the information like this out there. It's saying, yes, there is this phenomenon. There are these guardians. We don't know really who they are. And if their information is true, we do need to talk about it. And if their information isn't true, so what? Then I've put it out there. We've talked about it. I wanted to focus on the aspect of consciousness and not the sensationalist part of it, with the cataclysms and the dark future timelines that they were describing in their events and on their site, which is what most people tend to gravitate to. So, I figured if we get the conversation started in direction of timelines and consciousness, it didn't matter if it turns out they were real or not real, because we kind of kick-started a very important discussion in society, and I think we've achieved that.
Yes, indeed. So, and besides, obviously, they got the means to contact you if they need the field to come out with some type of statement or reply or question, obviously, right? And,
right.
Mean Green, you got your ears on? I'm getting people saying they have no sound. Can you hear me? I'm trying to message you.
I can hear you.
I know you can, and I am recording this, but I see it going on the feed, the visual. I don't hear the visual on the feed. Mean Green, are you capturing this? You hear me, brother? Please let me know. So that ain't good. Again, that's not the infiltrator's fault. Mean Green missed a sound button or something. I don't know. And again, these problems are starting to ants up with whoever's doing this to me each week, and I'm getting pissed off, and I ain't going nowhere. But besides that, again, so they got the means to contact you and such. And as sensational as it is, it still brings home a reality, Frank, of an ability to cross time as it was, and to affect events down through time, depending how you look at it, to which certain people or persons, if there's more than one, having access to these things, obviously there could be fluctuations in what they get to see each time from their efforts, if they're able to look. But I guess what am I talking about here? You would have to explain what this looking glass is, if you're cool with that.
Sure.
Sound okay now, I'm being told. I don't know why there was no sound. I apologize. Again, I'm recording this audio. If I have to create more work for me, I'll add it to the video, but this is a pain in the ass, except when I'm infiltrated, it will cut off my sound while on my end of recording, but you should be able to hear Frank and continue on with the thing. So they're probing, but I'm not giving up. But so does that make sense about what the actual thing is?
Here, I'll describe the device. Essentially, the looking glass is a technology, and there are several incarnations of it, as we find out there. But the one specifically described by Bill Wood and Dan Brewerish is one that has to do with, and also the Guardians is one that was found in sealed scrolls that were tucked away in caves that came out of Sumeria, and they found out about them, and they built them according to the plans. And the way they work is it's a device that you put, it's not just the device itself that has the effect of generating these timelines. The device has to be put into proximity of what's called stargates. Like you could think of them as micro wormholes that exist in nature on the planet in various places. There's many of them. I think it's hard to put a number on it, but we're talking like, maybe even, hundreds. And they're also outside of us, around us in space. They're underground. They're on the surface. And these stargates, I guess, with this device in combination, unlock a visual representation of the events, and that have to do with those watching it. It seems like there's a connection between the consciousness of the people that are there observing and the actual events that are then projected. And when as far as it's described, is when the observers are standing near the device begins to play kind of in a holographic fashion events and that are recognizable to the people watching, but in the sense of that they're familiar, but they realized very quickly that the events they were seeing were not from now or from the past. They hadn't happened yet. And so they started watching, and they began filming with 2 cameras, actually, the events. And they realized that the events, there's like a cycle of events that runs for 7 days and then starts all over again, but from another kind of perspective. And this runs a total of 144 times and ends up taking 2.76 years. And then the whole thing starts all over again. And I guess once they'd gone through these cycles, they realized, okay, well, it's cycles, it's a loop. And they with the help of computers, they began to document what they were seeing, keyword it so that they could search it, and then of course jump to events quickly. And once they had done it, the way, to my understanding, is once you know that you can see what's coming at a certain point and you can go there with, with this help of computers, you can begin to, well, the obvious, temptation is, okay, well, what if we then affect that event? And they affect the event, and then they can look in the future and see what has changed. And this is how it began to happen. That's how they began to manipulate the timelines.
Now that's interesting, and that's plausible, and it makes sense. And if they had this for a while, they would have a knack of knowing how to do that pretty quickly, and then try to affect changes also quickly at this point in time, pun intended.
Yes, of course, and it's but then they also discovered through, once the way they found it, it's described very nicely by Dan Burish. And Dan Burish is a microbiologist that was interviewed by Project Camelot very early on, and who had direct connection with the Looking Glass material. And
I haven't seen him since, have you?
Say that again?
I haven't seen him since, have you?
No, he's gone under. Like many of these people, they just sort of, surfaced, and Dan Burish was given a limited hangout, if you know what I mean. He was put on a leash and told, go out there and talk, but don't talk too much. And it has to do with, I think, a technique that the elites use often, and that is to drip feed information into the public domain to see where society is at, to see if they can either release more information or whether to go back to Hollywood and tell them to write the scripts a little differently to keep, adjusting so that they can, Hollywood being a form of soft disclosure for society, they are using these, techniques. And Dan Burish was allowed to come out and to talk about it. And he brought in some very interesting details about, how they even discovered the Looking Glass location. It had to do with it goes right back to Roswell, goes right back into the 40s, and these, the appearance of the little flying discs that began to hover over America and other parts in the world, and eventually began to crash.
And ultimately, this tech came from that, right? From that crash, supposedly?
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. There are several versions of Looking Glass, and one of the versions turns out to be like a navigational device that was directly on one of the craft, which allegedly wasn't supposed to crash and wasn't supposed to be turned over to the government. As a result of it having been turned over, they captured also the pilot of this craft, and that man, I guess you'd have to call him. They called them J-Rods. He was in captivity, and he had a certain neuropathy disease that they were using Dan Burish as a microbiology to try and figure out how to help him physically with that. And Dan Burish was then brought into these so-called clean spheres, which are, controlled environments which were needed because the pilots of these craft were used to a higher nitrogen content and much lower temperatures in their normal habitat. And as a result of this this interaction between Dan Burish and the J-Rods, he learned that A, the J-Rods are telepathic, and B, the J-Rods are not extraterrestrials in the same sense that they're not a foreign species, but actually that the J-Rods are future humanity that had come back in time, which is kind of a crazy idea. But the reason they'd come back how they got back in time was through the use of this Looking Glass type technology as a navigation device. And once they were here, of course, in captivity, Dan's communication began to get more complex, and they began to also develop something called, there was a paradox when they came back. And the paradox began to be, they documented it, and they called it the doctrine of convergent timeline paradox. And in that document, there was a lot of descriptions about what to expect as a result of the paradox, and also what the paradox can lead us to change in the future that would work out positive for humanity, beneficial for humanity. And very interesting document. And that's one of the things that I break down in a lot of detail in the webinar, because that, I think, is, when I saw that, I realized, oh my God, this document has never really been mined for what it really has in it. And there's all this talk about the looking glass and this device and seeing things and the timelines. But the doctrine of the paradox is something that at the time that I rediscovered it, because the stuff was all stashed away in my archive, and at the time that I began to rediscover it, I was parallel working on a show with a German biophysicist called Possible Futures, where we were tackling the idea of instrumental transcommunication messages, meaning messages that were coming from other dimensions. Now, some of those messages are from disincarnated humans, and other messages are from beings that have never incarnated, and they've been documented in certain projects, within Faraday cage type environments. So there's no way there you could say it's just some weird like gimmick radio, prank or something. These are totally hermetically sealed environments that picked up these messages. And when I was reading those messages for our show, I was just freaking out because they were like parallel to the messages that were put into the doctrine of convergent timeline paradox. And what's interesting is that the timing of the research on the instrumental transcommunication messages that Dieter and I were mining for our show was almost exactly the same as the timing of the emergence of the doctrine of convergent timeline paradox in the end of the 90s, beginning of the 2000s. So it almost seemed like there was a parallel convergence going on there.
Right. Now, didn't Dan Burrish also hinted that people will eventually start soon seeing things that would elaborate to what you're talking about as like little forms of evidences? And what if there are other dimensions? Maybe it could be other versions of themselves using this tech on these other worlds, per se, alternate worlds, to where they could also be trying to affect outcome in lives here, their other selves or their other ultimate plans, as it was, that would transverse beyond just their world and their reality as it was, but crossing over to these other planes. You follow me, right?
Yes, well, that's one of the things that also came through in the instrumental transcommunication messages. There was one particular one that was talking about how they were saying our worlds are about to mesh with yours. In other words, there is a convergence coming from another dimension. And, if we want to think about the Earth or consciousness habitating dimensions rather than just a physical 3D, block world, but that actually everything is in a similar sense to the film Matrix, kind of like a simulation. Or let's just say that our soul or our higher consciousness uses the more dense form of this particular dimension, these three dimensions, to practice, to learn, to interact, to be able to manifest a vehicle with which to interact with other souls in order to advance. Then we have to realize that when these other entities are communicating with us from higher dimensions, and they're saying we're about to merge, they're speaking directly about what a lot of people are talking about is about to happen, this kind of quantum evolutionary leap of human consciousness. Now, when we evolve, when we change and we make that evolution, we actually affect everything in the timeline. It's a ripple effect. So in the way that right now, the fact that there's J-rods that have appeared in our dimension or in our timeline, let's say, indicates that the cataclysm which led to their future, which led to their mutation as humans into turning to look like what looks like grays with the big eyes and smaller bodies and thinner limbs and stuff like that, that actually happened, which means that they're here as evidence that happened because they came back in time right to this point. Now, both factions, the P45s and 52s, came here for different reasons. The P45s came here because they were descendants of the Illuminati, and they wanted to ensure that the timeline continues the way it is. They were just here to harvest genetic material. The P52s were here. They were here to try and help us evolve and avert that timeline so that, in a sense, their success would mean their extinction, the extinction of their timeline, making them orphans and the orphans from another timeline that were left remnants here in ours.
The other side of that paradox, would it cancel out those who are coming through. Because, again, these J-Rods, according to Colonel Corso, I'm sure you're familiar with him in the day after Roswell, he claimed that it was determined, not just by him, but people, doing the research. All things came back to him, though, for the nut file. Those that could appreciate Corso, what I'm talking about, the day after Roswell. Get that book, everyone. It was determined that these beings were biological entities created to be in order to withstand the G-forces, to withstand various gravities, space travel, or even interdimensional travel, and that these beings are created possibly by also these ones in control of these looking glasses, as it was, utilizing these Stargate / portals. I guess that's a good connection of where and how they're coming, like you described. Would that cancel out if they wanted us to change, or the past to change, as it was, so that they would come into being and could keep doing what they're doing? And if this other side helps us to maybe avoid those things, wouldn't it cancel them out?
Yes.
And okay, even if they're in our plane?
Yeah. Well, no, they would be orphaned. They would be orphaned, or they'd be they'd be the last remnants of a non-existent timeline. So they described it as being kind of, they're like orphaned in our time, and they would travel off. Probably there's some passages in the Doctrine of Convergent Timeline Paradox about what they would do, with their, basically where they would go, because they'd be kind of like orphaned here with us, and they would go elsewhere. But the rest of their species, their ancestors, would no longer exist. And it would change the future. It would change the direction that consciousness would evolve. It's like a repeated cycle, just like the looking glass bases itself on loops that repeat. This same kind of thing would be a representative in terms of that probability which led to the cataclysm, which led to their future, would be averted, and a new timeline probability paradigm would be established that would lead to a different development of consciousness. Meaning that even human consciousness making this evolutionary leap now will actually change our past as well, and our future, and the direction that we move in. And that's why it'll affect everything. It'll affect all the different parallel universes. Everything will like this is all connected. So that's why there's so many people with eyeballs on, there's so many beings with eyeballs on us right now, because this is such a critical point. And this is also why the J-Rods came back now, because it's right before this event. And the one faction is trying to manipulate it, of course, to their advantage, and the other is trying to prevent their manipulation from, leading to their future, and make sure that we try to make this. It's been forecast that humanity will have this evolutionary leap. But as you see, I'm sure you've noticed that there's been a lot of high civilizations, advanced civilizations, which have come and gone, that are now just legends, right? So to me, that's just an indication that this loop happens a lot. It's happened a lot, and it keeps coming back to this point. And now we seem to be at a very interesting point, because now we seem to have that, we have certain, let's just say, certain elements in the entire universe and the cosmos have placed us in a certain position right now that we haven't been in ever before, which are adding extra advantages, giving us extra advantages, and leaning and helping us increase the probability of making that leap this time and not going back into the same cycle. And the cycle essentially has to do with free will, because a lot of people think, we're going to evolve. It's inevitable, right? That's what Bill Wood was saying in that interview with Carrie Cassidy, that it's inevitable that we wake up. Even those who have never done any work on themselves are going to wake up. And for those who are out there that have been doing spiritual work for years, they know how difficult it is and how much you have to persevere against all odds in the world that's full of darkness and unconsciousness. And to think that they're just all suddenly going to wake up just seems a little bit ludicrous. And the free will aspect is here for us to be able to make decisions, to make that, so that when we do make that evolutionary leap, it's legitimate. It's not something where someone came along and gave you the ace, so you had like the hand that could beat your opponent at the last minute. Well, that's cheating. That's not really the evolution that we want. That's not a genuine evolution. So yeah, we have free will so that we can fuck it up too, you know. So pardon my French.
No, it's cool on this show, man. You know, free speech is what I in this show is all about. No special clubs, no special subscriptions. Now, again, this is where I become personally interested and could relate, and through experience, as as crazy as this is going to sound, and we won't dwell on it, are phased back through time. This show is by its ripple effects and my efforts. We are on a new path on a different timeline. And it's a long story. Maybe off air one day we could talk about it the more this progresses. But and we are going to a point where we are going to make our fate, and we'll usher in the Martian Revelation, and that's when my life will begin. Depending how you look at it, that's what I was told, and it's even a riddle there to be solved as time goes on. For what purpose? Well, maybe as more... how do I say this? Memories will phase in from other versions of myself as it was. And it's something really that's hard to describe. And there's more than one source on this plane of where I am now in this world. For instance, I'll give you an idea, then we'll move on. But it's the concept. In 2005, in February, I had an accident. A head-on collision. It wasn't my fault, and I was working. All right, I was going up the street. The light was green. Someone turned into the left lane, decided to go right into me. They were going to make a left into the Winn-Dixie. They slammed into me. All I remember is all at once, hitting my head on the extended mirror that hit my temple, which gave me damage to my right thalamic region, hitting the steering wheel at the top of my forehead, and I had a black and blue on my chin. If I was to connect them all the dots together, that was a triangle. But here's the thing. On impact, all of a sudden, I seen like red cover my eyes, and I tasted blood. I tasted and felt warm wetness going down my throat. All I did is I was scared. I was spinning. I held onto my steering wheel for what seemed like maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes, just spinning. I'm alive. I'm just keep thinking, just, oh, King Holy be Jesus, please help me. I don't even want to open my eyes. I don't want to do nothing. As long as because after what I'm tasting and feeling, that wasn't right. It was not right. I knew something was up, but as long as I kept my thoughts, that I could keep to myself going, if that makes sense to you. And when I came out of it, stopped spinning, came down, I finally had the balls. I put my hands up to my face, and I, moved my hands around it, pulled my heads away slightly. Then I said, all right, Gary, grow some nuts, open your eyes, because I was expecting a bloodbath. Nothing. Then I put my fingers down my throat. Nothing. I was like, oh, my God. I opened the door. I got in the car, because I guess I was still spinning. I was walking around in circles, and there was a cop there, and he was directing traffic. I'm like, where the hell did you come from? And he's like, please sit down, please sit down. I was like, call an ambulance. And as he sat me down, because I was dizzy, he says, no, they were already here. What do you mean they were already here? I'm telling you, this just happened. I'm telling you what happened. And, I was like, it can't be. It was like 5 minutes, right? That indicates lost time. He says that they were there, and that I had signed papers for that. I didn't want to go. I said, dude, give me what you're smoking. I need it now. I'm still dizzy. And I was just like pissed off. I was like, well, why am I still in the middle of the road if they were here? How long was I here? Oh, you were here for about a half hour, 45 minutes. I was like, you're shitting me. I'm telling you, it's only been 5 minutes. I didn't sign anything. I want the ambulance here now. Why would I be telling you I need the ambulance here now when you see me get out of my fucking car and I'm spinning around and you had to come over and grab me because you're directing traffic? Why leave me in the middle of the road? He didn't answer. He's like, please, sir, please just sit down, and, well, a tow truck's coming, and they're going to pull your car off the road or whatnot. I was like, so you're saying I signed papers already? So long story short, later I come into something I experienced, and I thought of Dan Barish. I came across a code down through time, the messages you're talking about. And I'm going to leave a long story short. Again, off air, I think you and I would have some interesting conversations. But I was just basically told of what happened to me. Because I met an intelligence in the code. And as crazy as it sounds, sir, and please bear with me. I don't mean to steal this light from you. But it's important because I have a personal experience and to relate this to this. And I still want to know more. But they stated and caused by pointing me that I would have to use a dictionary, an online dictionary, to follow the messages that were being communicated to me, as if at that moment, as I would follow, it's like a communication taking place. So I'm not hearing voices, and let's put it this way: it described my accident. That I was just cruising I was cruising down the road. It said that I was continuing on through the passing. That another vehicle decided to veer left into the wind. I said, "Holy shit! That's got to be a coincidence," because the other ship that veered into the wind was veering left into the Winn-Dixie. And I said, "Holy crap!" I was like, "Okay." Then it said, "To cause to make unconscious, to make become conscious, to have cause death, to bring back from death." And I'm thinking, wait a minute, the death part. Remember, how would anyone know? I'm reading this from a code to the Twilight Zone. This should already be impossible. And this was like a year or two later. All right, but I never forgotten what happened to me, other thoughts. But it described it, and I thought, holy shit.
It sounds like you had an NDE, my friend.
Not only that. Oh, okay. But here's a problem. Remember, to me, it was 5 minutes, right?
Well, yeah. What's time, though, in that state?
Therefore, there's missing time. I made note of that, so I never forgot it. You know what I mean? So I'd never forget this event. Now, I started thinking, wait a minute. To pull out and to place back in. To pull out what and to place back in? And then I said, where? What if one of these alternate worlds, I died there? But before that moment, they're able to pull my soul, my essence out, maybe that's the whirring, spinning feeling. I don't know. All I know is that I was trying to keep myself alive because I knew by that impact, man, it happened so fast yet at once, but yet I see it in slow motion until impact, and then that spinning, and then the red and the blood down my throat, all that. It had to have been. Now, what if they took me out, put me on another Earth, like Sliders, okay, into another self that had the same accident, but wanted to have a different outcome, to create a timeline for an outcome that was already being worked on there. Because why focus special on me, except for a part of a bigger something that's going on? And I won't allude to that now. That'll take us hours, I think, in time as you and I talk off record. But
well, what you're describing is typically described by people that do make, like walk-ins, for example. That's another form of that, where there's a momentary breach between universes that can happen when there's this kind of a traumatic event, physical trauma. And in a sense, if you look at the physical trauma as a cross-section between, in consciousness, between your different states, your higher self and your egoistic lower self that's habitating the body, then those are the moments that you may have made out before you even came here, where you were going to make that switch. And part of you was going to, like you described it, really actually quite interesting, that part of you would go into this other parallel universe, carry on another probable life there, and the other one would be the one that you're in now.
Not on my own volition, because obviously what happened to me. I know what I saw. I know what it's like to have blood slowly. It looked like just red crossing my eyesight. You're like, oh my gosh. Then I felt the world. After that, it's like in a slow progression. That's when I felt the warmth and taste and my going down my throat, and it was filling up. And that's when the dizziness, I just held on and I just kept in my mind, all right, Gary, you're alive. You know, I just think I do whatever. I know I sound like shit. I sound like a nut, but as long as I have a sound, I'm alive. But yet it was just so weird because, and then when this code described it to me, it's like it left me to come up with the opinion myself that I was not at the same place anymore, but picked up and put somewhere else. Remember, the cause unconsciousness, the cause to become conscious, to cause death, to cause the come back from death. I mean, and then it was like, I was like, wow, why is this like talking to someone? But this is how worlds communicate, I was told ultimately through it. But I'm thinking, wait a minute, if I am on another planet, and now also being phased back through time with another bizarre story, but they're all connected. That's the problem, and I'm not crazy. Please, believe me. Well, you can believe I'm crazy. All right, I admit it sounds nuts, but this is a reality, and yet this show's existing, and I'm still here, and I'm going forth that don't matter, and at least people will be entertained. All right? This is not just to put on a show or entertainment. This is something that is real. They have me on a path and a part where my footsteps are not my own, meaning what I think is my own efforts and my own ideas, and what we're doing here is not actually my own efforts and ideas or my own steps. It's theirs. But who are they? That's part of the problem. And I had to come to deal with because I was talking to someone in not without voice or sound through a code to where at that point it's a communication, and they wanted me to know that too, telling me that's how worlds communicate. Look, all I'm saying is that there's a reality here, and then but why do what they did to me? And then who was I in that world? Did I supposed to die there too, or was it? Do I have it's hard to, you see how it gets so hard.
Sure, but the thing is, Gary, those kind of questions are the kind of questions people have been trying to answer for a long time, especially people that are working in these fringe areas. And they're I'm nuts. I'm honest. I swear upon my faith in King Holy Be Jesus, everything else, if that even matters to most people. It does to me, so that's why I do that. It's real, and I just don't know how to explain it. I have been slammed back in my body before from experiences, is what I call them, experiences. Now, was that a prep up to what was going to happen to me in 2005? I don't know. But it's been all throughout my life, even into my mom, back to my mom, which was also in this code, by the way, and me in her womb, and into my mom's own mouth over the years. My family never believed and mocked her, even on her own deathbed. She told me more info, and the code connects to that. And what am I supposed to do? Go nuts? No, I still got to be me. Now, if I am on another plane or another planet, how shouldn't I notice differences like Mandela effects? Maybe a couple, but I don't think so. Not really. I mean, how many? Maybe there's the same or just little slight differences on each different world, depending. You're following my mindset, so I think you know where I'm going. But right. I don't know, but I know I'm here for a purpose, and I'm phased back through time after a longer time period and living in this other time to where I had to be phased back into myself, and it has to do with frequencies. Like as we age, when we're born, we always have a genetic imprint on us, right? Like a fingerprint. Like everyone's different, and it's by frequencies or something. People say, "Oh, they got chips in me." Well, I was like, I don't think it's anything like that, because if they're more advanced, they'd know your fingerprint into as genetics individually, I would think. And if they send a person through time, it would have to be in that person's lifetime, so where they could send someone, again, like that accident, depending, and what happened after that, and what's going on. Again, that's the only thing that makes sense is what you're describing with the looking glass, and then I'll shut up. But please, I need you to hear this, because maybe someone listening, or even you, could guide me to someone that maybe be able to shed more light on this, because this is an important subject. And then I keep on thinking of
Dan Burch's smiley face. Just wait, things are going to be seen and experienced, and I don't like to say on that. And I'm like, well, a whoop-de-doo and a half happened to me, and I'm still here trying to explain it. And that as you age, depending, let's say that they send someone back through time if you're 80, you will not have those memories until you start aging up to the fingerprint of the genetic imprint of when you left. Does that make sense? Like, that's when your memory would sync up to genetically to the fingerprint of the memories could come into you from this other time to which you would have came. And it's a soul thing. It's not like a body thing. But being able then to be placed into that other self, and as you age and live life as you think is normal, periodically you're going to get these flashes, these memories, or something, or some type of memory that you know you didn't live yet, or ones that you have, but
that
mainly and then it starts putting the pictures together, and then it drives you nuts because what is it leading you to? Well, the only thing I was told is I had to have faith, I had to believe, because when we help make our own fate, when I help make our own fate, lead us into the usher in the Martian Revelation, which is not just the name of a show. That's when my life begins. What the hell is up with that, Frank? All right, so I'm done with that. I just had to get it out there, especially for those down through time, because you're also here, sir. It's not a coincidence, even though you may be like, oh, my God, this guy's fucking batshit crazy. No, I'm not. You know, I wish I was.
I've heard, listen, it's not crazy sounding at all. It's just there are not a lot of people talking about this kind of stuff. You know, I did a show with Tanya Maidenford we produced here for Gaia called Timeless in Germany. And we had a lot of guests on that had special abilities. Many of them had gained those abilities after they'd had a near-death experience. And while they were in that near-death experience, time suspended, and they spent months, even years away, and came back minutes later. And they had, certain abilities. Like, for example, one person was able to see spirits that had disembodied, like in the case of accidents. Like, he was called in, he worked in the fire department, and when there was an accident and somebody had a car crash and their body was in the car and it was dead, and he would see them, alive, their spirit. He would talk with them and help them because they'd be freaking out, kind of like what it reminded me of when you were describing, like talking to the cop and saying, wait a minute, what the hell's going on, right?
That was freaking out. And you know what was my wife? She's over there. She's sitting on the side of the road. How the hell did you get here? I'm just trying to tell you.
Yeah.
I've been there. Then I said, 45 minutes.
I'm wondering if even the cop was, in sort of in another dimension that you were talking to, and that your perception of that moment was not in this physical reality, but in a parallel reality. And this is why time for you was not, it was just didn't make any sense, because obviously he was talking about 30 minutes and you were talking about 5 minutes. But what I'm saying is that there are people that have these experiences that are very legit and very real. It's just that in society we haven't found in our world, since we turned our scientific direction and perspective toward believing in everything being accidental and that there's no spirit, that the universe is dead, a bunch of rocks and matter and atoms. We've denied the idea of spirit and the idea of soul. And, those people that are, for example, on the transhumanist timeline, or the negative timeline, as I call it, those are the people who don't believe in any kind of like soul. You know
why? You know why? Because they haven't fucking experienced it. Once they know that they're stand back into their body, and then you have to come to the conclusion by the events of which led you up to that to figure that out. Once I started reading the Bible again, I said, holy crap. I seen it in a totally different, because I was like, I know what it's like, because it was my soul. To me, in my experiences, it was my real body. But what a whoop-de-do it was to find out that I was supposedly home in my bed during these certain experiences, being slammed back into my body. And I don't know what to say. All I said is that they have the technology, because what was done there, I don't want to get into that now. They
have technology to do that artificially as well, to put people through trauma. And the MK Ultra, for example, that's something which has had a very large impact on especially the disclosure scene, because I believe there's a lot of people that are MK Ultra operatives who are within the UFO community who swear they have memories of being on, Dark Fleet or whatever they call it, and those are implanted memories, and it's possible, totally possible to do that. Yeah, and the only way you can tell the difference, though, is if you have to really be fine-tuned to understanding, for one, history, like the real history, and understanding, certain things, certain key elements of the main narrative, to be able to distinguish between what is an MK Ultra implanted idea and what really is going on. So an MK Ultra uses, like, if Kathy O'Brien published a book in the 90s called Transformation of America. In that book, she talks about high levels of trauma that these mind control slaves are subjected to beat their egos into the background and to put them into survival mode. So they begin to develop compartmentalization, and with the compartmentalization, the handlers are able to flip them into certain characters, implant messages, and then they send them on their way to deliver the message, and the person receiving them, it will then abuse them and pull out, send them back into that compartmentalized personality, and then that personality will deliver the message to them. That's how they work. It's diabolical, and but it's just evidence that there's this stuff going on. And your version was a perhaps naturally induced trauma, which puts you into that altered state. And you probably do well to talk to somebody who deals with walk-in. In fact, I know somebody that you might have a conversation with.
Could you give me not on here, but through an email?
Yeah, I'll put you in touch with that person.
But here's the problem with that. If it was natural, I thought about that, but then there's the code from a total different source, from a different situation in my life that opened it up for me, that I was meant to see down through time, figure it out, using my intelligence. Surely no intelligent life could survive there is a big question by so many faces, and they're all true, of what the message intends. And that tells me and told me that scenario. How would they have known? And the way that it was described, causing a vessel to veer into the wind, meaning they caused it. Whoever did this to me, they're telling me what happened to me. They're telling me they caused it because it said to cause a vehicle to veer into the wind. Yeah, a vehicle that turned through the left lane. They had the red light, and they were turning into the wind. Dixie, stopping. I said, what are the odds? I was like, and I had to laugh because I could have cried. I had to laugh. I was like, in a way, that's kind of humorous. And why do I feel there's someone there laughing their ass off at me as I come to understand this message?
What I mean by natural is that, there's a difference between your soul's plan and the plan of particular groups of people that are organized to manipulate the reality around us. Just like the looking glass, the operators of the looking glass were manipulating the timelines to get an advantage, to have a certain advantage over others. And your thing, I believe, is more, what I mean by natural is it's more on a personal evolutionary level. Now, of course, on one level, you have to ask yourself, what is natural? In a sense, even the dark people, the bad elites, are an extension of our greater soul family, and they're placed also within this bubble of experience to give us the perspective, the contrast between light and dark, and to push us, kick our asses, if you will, to kind of wake up. Without them, remember that line in The Matrix where Smith is telling him, look, we tried a Matrix where everyone was living on it's totally easy and everything was cool, like permanent vacation, and it was a total disaster. It seems like our consciousness needs a bit of provocation. It needs something to kind of kick it into gear. And so for me, a long time ago, I stopped looking at the elite and the cabal as the enemy and looking at them more as the extension of our darker self, like our dark, the shadow self that we have, that we need to nourish in the soil. I mean, the soil gets nourished by rotting, vegetables. You put them in the compost and they turn back into, after the worms eat the stuff and shit it out the other end, it becomes powerful, potent compost to grow amazing plants, right? So in that analogy, the dark people are really just there to give us the fertilizer.
Yeah, indeed. I grow. I know all about growing, and the fertilizers. And I got some growing now. But let's just say, that's why I also became concerned after me dwelling on this and thinking about it, because obviously I was meant to. I got the message. They knew at that time. They knew down through time or down through wherever the fuck they really are in some other dimension or alternate world. Them laughing at me in a good way or bad, I don't know. Here's my question. Who the hell am I? What are they trying to make me? And who am I there that I would be focused on here to be plucked up and out like a dog I was described as it wasn't asked his permission and thrown into a pit and there's two sides betting against each other. Let's put it this way. I need answers. I need answers, and there's no way. How can I really get them? You saying gave me such a warmth when you said there's actually someone that will at least be able to follow me and might be able to help me understand some of this shit, because something's going on. And what the purpose? What does it mean? I have to help make our fate, which the Martian Revelation is not just a show name. It's an event time. Something's going to come to a point in time, and that's when my life begins. What do you think of something like that? What would you think? I was like, what do you mean it begins? I mean, I don't know. From the point to when I'll have to be phased back into myself again, like a never-ending loop. I mean, I don't know. I mean, all these weird things come into my mind, and believe me, sir, I'm not dumb. I'm intelligent. I don't sound like the smartest. I don't have no college degrees or nothing. I am who I am by what God gave me, right? So, in using that, trying to use my brain, someone has access to be able to know what that is, to pull out the souls, put them somewhere else. And obviously, being a man of faith, or try to be, though I'm sucked, I'm lucky if I'll be resurrected, right? But the thing is, was it the devil? Was it this or that? But either way, I'm here. My footsteps are not my own, even in creating the Martian Revelation and guiding me in this work. I always felt like I was being guided and just put into places and to where, and I just got to have faith, like this show when I
Well, you are, Gary. I mean, the thing is, that's one of the things I've been trying to get out there. Is like we have to stop thinking about things in terms of accidents. And start thinking everything.
Asshole. I don't want to be some asshole, Frank. Is that what they're leading me? You know what I mean? I don't want to lead something that would be detrimental to humanity. And I love life. I love animals. I see God's handiwork and or whatever you want to call it, nature. It's us. I love that. I don't want to be something that would counter that. But then again, I don't know their deals, because if they could pull me out from that accident, put me in immediately, transfer me to somewhere else, that says a lot. And it makes me wonder then the purposes, and like you said, with this looking glass, and to avert and do things, to avert things or to create things or to maneuver things, and not just on their own world or their own timeline. They could create alternate timelines, and I have been in. And that reality has manifested to me. Again, we would have to talk off the record, and I sound like a madman. We'll have to smoke together or something, because you're gonna need it. Like I tell the listeners on this show, pack them and smoke them, because it helps you think, and for me as a tool, and it has helped me think over the years. But look at what I'm thinking. Look what we are talking about, everyone. And like Frank says, there's a lot of people that they're going to realize it's here. They're here. Whatever it is, it's already affecting the ripples, even from what I'm doing. Again, if they're not my own, even being phased back through time, it's the effects of those who are steering the ship, as it was, for lack of a better term, more ignorant. Does that make sense?
Perfectly.
Oh, God, I'm glad it does to someone. I just don't know where it could go. And I think at this point, I think it's a perfect time for a break for people to dwell on. Are you okay with that, sir, to go to a break for about 6 or 7 minutes?
I'm good.
All right. That way, get yourself a drink or something. But as listeners to this show could appreciate, like I just said, I gave you the best advice. Pack them and smoke them, because you're still definitely going to need them when we come back on the Martian Revelation with Frank Jacob. He's on fire. And I'll shut up as much as I can. But thank you, sir, for bringing that out. I look forward to that contact, and hopefully they will be willing to talk to me. All right, so everyone, do what you got to do.
I'll be back.
Don't run. We are your friends.
If you are a listener of the Martian Revelation, then you are well aware that the entire planet Earth is currently involved in an all-out worldwide space race. Every country across the globe, including England, Germany, India, Russia, and China, are involved in a mad Martian rush to be the first country to plant their flag on Mars. Get an idea of what these brave astronauts will be finding on the planet Mars before President Trump plants the first American boots on the face of Mars. You might want to familiarize yourself with George Haas and get to know his work and read his books. Haas has been studying NASA and European Space Agency imagery of Mars for over 25 years and has co-authored 2 books with geomorphologist William Saunders called the Cydonia Codex and the Martian Codex. I encourage you all to support his research by visiting his website at www.theCydoniaInstitute.com. And remember, as George Haas has always said, through NASA's own pictures, the truth will be revealed. Driving me mad. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Gary Leggiere, the Martian Revealer, known also as the Mad Martian. And of course, you're still listening to the Martian Revelation, and we're here with our cool special guest, return guest, Frank Jacob, Guardians of the Looking Glass. And be sure to click on the facesofmars.com so you can click on his links there for his website, which was part of a past show pick when I had him on in 2019 of the Martian city behind him. You can see the heads on the cliffs and all that. And there's supposed to be a pyramid over there. But anyway, click under that for one of his video pages, A Tale of Two Timelines. How did we get here? When I seen this, I listeners could appreciate all I thought it was Tale of Two Captains. Again, things I describe are also in there as well. Many sources connecting down through time. This is not a coincidence. Look at the zipper. You know what I'm saying? Two sides are at war with each other playing chess. I mean, this is too much visual representation of synchronicity. And when we went to break there, you know, the commercial sounded good. And then lo and behold, I got a thought in my head. Boy, at least they're not, you know, fucking with my guest, Frank Jacob. Thank you for having respect for him to speak, at least. But right then, it kicked in, and I'm sure you heard the music all messed up. I don't know. Frank and others, I'm going to say this. When this happens, and I talked to someone offline about it, and when this happens, it's like the sound starts getting choppy. Then I hear these like tick, 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 tick. My mouse moves the same way. Move, stops, move, stops, move, stops. And certain things will flash, you know, like my media player there or something else. And I don't have no control of my computer when this is going on. But someone said, wait a minute, you hear pulses? Maybe it's a message. Look at what we're talking about. And the conversation I'm trying to bring up here, which I'm not revealing everything on that conversation, but what if it is? And if it is, I'll say it openly now for those down through time listening. There's no way I could stop and determine what the pulses is to see if I could slow it up or speed it up and see if it's voices talking. Because to me, it just sounds like, you know, click, 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 static. But maybe if I was to slow it down or speed it up or, you know, it might be a message. But, definitely it's infiltration. It only happens during this show. Never when I'm doing other things, even when I'm on Skype and doing hours-long video conversations with. It never happens. It's only during this show, and normally it happens after 1 o'clock or toward the end of the show. But sometimes, and it's been amping up the past few shows, listeners do not appreciate, neither do I, that it's been happening like today, 3 times at the beginning of the show, you know, during the first hour. Now once, again, at least thank you for not doing it to the guests. You want to fuck with me, you're going to do it. What can I do? And what can I say? Free speech is what I'm about. And again, if it's the commie chinks or commies, screw you, because we're going to pull you down. Okay? But if this is anything along the lines of what Frank is discussing and trying to bring forth, and hopefully I'm not taken away from, because this is a very important subject. But as I said, I can relate. It's something that, you know, whether you believe it or not, it doesn't matter, because it's my reality, right? Well, and at least you'll be entertained. I'm crazy. Go ahead. Go back to your normal and natural, because there's many things going on in the natural that you can be pulled out and put somewhere else in a heartbeat. I know, at least that much. I've experienced it. So, Frank, again, I apologize for that. You are back. Thank you for still being here through that. So, this is a very important tool. I would love to find Dan Burrish and get him on the show. That would be awesome if he'd be allowed, or someone else down through time want to chime in. I'm doing what I was told to do, and I'm having faith. I'm doing it one show at a time with no money, no means, and other people even sacrificing their time and lives. Why? Believing in some crazy man? Or is it just there's something there that's drive that they want to see where it goes to? Because it's not just me. It's not. I can't make up with it. I can't make up this shit even if I wanted to. This is like a movie and a half or something. But no, this is a real thing that's manifesting, and it's only getting more, especially by this person infiltrating every time and doing that. Maybe it is a message. I don't know, Frank. I mean, because you brought up messages earlier, then I won't dwell on it. I apologize again. But could that possibility fall into that these things are a manifestation of what's going on during this show? I'm just getting all pissed off, but yet it's real. Could be really something else to get my attention that I not yet know.
Well, I think we need to start looking at everything around that. That was the point I was getting at before. We need to stop thinking about accidental things around us, that they're just coincidence, and begin to pay attention to, because, you know, what we have out there is what we are given to expand our consciousness with. So if we're seeing things out there which we don't like, then it's an impetus for us to change the environment or change our attitude. And that way we can, you know, it's a great way for us to experiment with reality in that sense, whatever that is, right? We can, you know, just like the looking glass, people would change, you know, an aspect of the timeline and see what the result was. We can do that in our lives just as well. We can listen, like an event like what you're describing with this technical stuff. It could very well be some kind of a signal to you. As you know, it depends. Has it been happening always or just recently? And if it's been happening just recently, then think about what recently has been going on in your life that may have affected it or impacted it.
Mean Green, how long? This has been going on, like what, since last year? Since last year it started happening. And never before that even. But then a few times I thought, okay, maybe it's some programs on my end. I go through all my programs, delete what I think it could be, even though I don't use it, and there doesn't seem to be anything new installed. I checked my records for the processes. I can't even access my processes when this is going on, so I could take a picture and see if there's something there different, you know, that might show what the hell's going on, you know. And there's nothing, I have to sit here and wait it out, all pissed off, and someone knows it, and they're laughing. Either way, I still feel someone laughing, regards, you know, if it's an infiltrator per se, or they're not going to succeed, though. They're not going to destroy the show. It makes me look bad, but that's okay. It is what it is. This is not Art Bell or Coast to Coast, not yet. It will be something down through time, trust me, because that's the day we've got to make our fate for. I just got to keep on coming back one show at a time and listening, having faith, and at least doing what I was told to do. And that's the best I could do in my ability, unless I hit the lottery or something else that'll really transform this to where it needs to go. And maybe it will yet down through time. But if I quit or get too pissed off, you feel me? That ain't going to happen. Frank, there might be something more to this, but I don't know. It's been like almost a year now. And I've been talking, but it's been coming more frequently in past few months that it's escalating, and not just at a certain time during the show. You know, in the beginning, I don't know. I wish I did. I wish, and if those down through time or whoever or wherever you are, if it is a message, I ain't getting it. I don't know how to get it. I don't know what to do to get it. Throw me a fucking bone. Do something like a Bill and Ted Excellent Adventure. Put the key under a bucket. And if I have a thought, I go to it, and the answer's there. That would help. Other than that, I don't know what to say. I'm trying, and I'm taking away from my guest. And I apologize, Frank. And thank you for tolerating me. But most thank you for taking me seriously. I appreciate that, because it's very hard to, as you can imagine. But this is what it is. So, and these are the important things. So, one question I have in mind. In their mind, or, well, in their visions or in their tells, what is the big event that they allude to that changes things? Or is there a multiple set of various events?
Well, what they're talking about is a cosmic event, meaning that it's something that happens in our galaxy, in our universe. Like a physical event that happens, not just a conscious event, but it's triggered by a physical event. And that event has been described by some people as like a flash, the great flash or the great wave. You know, Paul Laviolette talks about the wave. He's got wave theory. He talks about how supernovas trigger massive waves of neutrinos, which spread out into the universe, and then when they hit, they change whatever they encounter. And neutrinos are those kind of particles that they don't really become matter until they lodge into something. And the other people talk about cataclysm science, and there's evidence to show that there's been, like I was mentioning earlier, cycles in society where this has happened again and again. And these cycles tend to be around ranges anywhere. I mean, originally it was thought that if it was a supernova, that these things can only happen once. There's a supernova, the star dies and it's over. And we see like evidence of supernovas in the stars around us. But the idea that our sun could actually go micronova is now being substantiated, that actually our sun is a very dangerous dance partner, so to speak, of the planet. And it seems that the sun periodically goes off and does, something, and that either is that something is either a mega flare, which is, you may have heard of solar flares, and that they, when the solar flare directed at Earth goes off, it shoots like all these particles at us, and it'll essentially, the last, there was one called the Carrington event, in the 19th century, 1867, I believe, and when that happened, it fried it fried telegram lines, which were back then, which was the technology they had, and it lit up the sky and caused a massive aurora borealis all the way down to Jamaica. Essentially it's an extreme high energy input. Of course, that one wasn't big enough to take us out, but if we were to get hit by something that is 10 times or more powerful than the Carrington event, it would obviously fry all of our instruments, all of our technology. It would, even affect our brains. In fact, that's one of the things that we explored in our film Solar Revolution, that our human brains are actually locked into, the magnetosphere of the Earth, and that we have a direct connection with it, that actually when something like this were to happen, it would actually change us consciously as well. The only question is, what form will it take? And there is absolutely evidence that there is a cycle which is coming to a close now, meaning that another mass scale event on this level is anticipated any day, any time, any year. It could happen. And the Looking Glass Guardians describe it as being the year 2030. I think that's an interesting number for several reasons. One of them being the Agenda 2030. And, we know that this group of people have built their own underground cities and their own underground getaway to, one of the reasons that they put it into Alternative 3. It was Alternative 2, actually, was the underground city version. So they would, use that as a way to survive something like this. But if it is a micro nova as opposed to a mega flare, it has another quality altogether, because they've been trying to solve why they found evidence once they hit, they began exploring Antarctica and the North Pole all the way back into the 40s. Admiral Byrd probably is a name you recognize, and he recognized that there were, remnants of fossilized coral. There were trees, forests, running, fresh water, and in Greenland there was evidence of also of like animals and things that had been, frozen on the spot, literally, really quickly, and that can only be explained if there is a sudden, massive change of the polarity in the physical sense, that the Earth would actually rotate on its axis and move things that are, in the tropical zone up into the freezing zone, and they would be frozen almost instantly. And there's evidence for that having happened multiple times. And the interesting thing is, the cycle we're talking about tends to be around anywhere between 5,000 and 25,000 years, let's say 26,000 years, where that happens. And what triggers these, they've always tried to, there's a guy called Charles Hapgood that was one of the leading scientists in this field in the 50s, and they were publishing material about these polar shifts that were happening, and they were trying to figure out, and even Einstein was trying to figure out what could cause a polar shift. They couldn't figure it out because it didn't have any basis in physics. That didn't make any sense. Well, the problem was that the material had been censored by the CIA because it turns out Charles Hapgood was a CIA double agent, and the material that published the real theory behind it was taken off the market, so to speak, put top secret, and instead they released a phony baloney theory that was quickly debunked, so people forgot about cataclysm science. But the cataclysm science evidence points toward micronovas happening more often than is actually been thought. And in fact, micronovas are not the end of the star. They're actually only a brief, like a blink. And there's a micronova, and then the star returns and stabilizes. During the micronova, such incredible amounts of energy are released that come and hit Earth that they penetrate past the core and right into the matter of and there's this belt
like
that
muons, muons, right? Like muons, like how they found the extra chamber in the pyramid by using something
like
about
LiDAR, like that kind of stuff where they can penetrate through. Yeah, and this is sort of similar. What happens is the energy goes through and hits something called a plasticine layer, which apparently the continents are floating on. And that plasticine layer, like the word describes, like it's like more like plastic, which means it's solid most of the time. It's flexible, yet it's solid. But when this wave hits it, it turns to liquid almost instantaneously. When that happens, it's the mechanism by which it becomes like a ball bearing. The planet suddenly, the weight distribution on the planet can shift according, where it has been held in place by the firm level of the plasticine holding the continents in place. Now that disappears and they slide like grease into a new position. And it seems like that position always goes back to the same place again and again. And they've got evidence of that. And they even found, they analyzed the cave drawings left behind from many thousands of years ago, and they found that legends talking about the Earth going dark for 3 days were matched simultaneously by cave drawings found on the other side of the planet where it said the never-ending day. So it seems like
that in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about that in 2 weeks. What's his face there? Hold on. For everyone doesn't know, because it's right on the tip of my tongue. Gil Broussard. So make sure everyone to check that one out. And it's funny you brought that up, Frank. That's like segues right to it. Now, that also reminds me of, like, I'm sure you know who Forrester is. He goes around all these different sites and stuff. And Brian Forrester. And he shows out these broken ancient structures, that look like they have these burns on them. And it's from, ancient civilizations. We really don't know how long, but, he indicates, like, again, things from the sun, maybe during these events like you're talking about. And then, but regards to the poles, though, that seems also like some type of magnetic or gravity. Would this fall in at all along, which also Gil Broussard talks about as a cosmic event, and a little different than others, but like of Nibiru, or whatever you want to call it, the planet of the star of the crossing, the planet of the crossing.
Yeah. That was the next thing you're taking right at the tip of my tongue. It was the next thing was not only is there this, 2030 number. And what relates to the 2030 number is that, if you'll recall, in Packing for Mars, we had a Vatican whistleblower testimony being described by Lucas Gantamburlu about how the Vatican, in their own secret space program, sent probes out into the cosmos because they noticed that with Pioneer 10, there had been an unusual anomalous change in its course. And that normally doesn't happen unless there is a body that seemed to be gravitationally large enough to pull it away from its course. And what they found, indeed, was they found what I guess is called Planet X. Some people call it Nibiru, of course. And that it seems to be like a long cycle partner of our sun. And the projected date of its return, its perihelion within the solar system, which we are in, is, guess what? Around 2030, right? So it seems to all be lining up. There is many overlaps. That's what I'm saying. There's just too many overlaps for this to be ignored. Something is coming. Something is going to happen. And Nibiru, Planet X, was actually discovered already back in the 80s. And there were a whole team of astronomers that were observing it, and it was more or less considered a reality until they suddenly, that went silent as well. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah, there's a reason for that. What could that reason be? Of its inevitableness. Maybe that's why all the calming shots, the rush to kill the majority off this earth. But they still have an evil agenda behind all that, so there's something wrong there. And it might happen again. My voice is starting to get a little silent-y. So if something happens, just keep riding the show, okay, sir? But until then, so it may be maybe both. And because
let me continue on the thread here of the cosmic event. Why is the cosmic event important, or what does it have to do with our consciousness, right? And so one thing we're learning about is that frequencies have an impact on our brain, on our thinking, on our brain waves.
What I explained earlier, exactly. We all have fingerprints. The map, they mapped me when I was 6.
Right. And all of these cosmic events always are accompanied by specific frequencies, and exactly that. Whether it's a waveform or particle form, these frequencies are going to hit us, and they've already begun to hit us. In fact, there's a window that opened around 2012 where we moved into the galactic plane, and our planet is now is more directly in line with these cosmic particles than it ever has been. And so you may have, a lot of people were expecting, like Bill Wood in his interview with Carrie Cassidy said, there's going to be this mass awakening in 2012. Well, it didn't happen that way. But what did happen was that we began to move into this area of more of an influx of these frequencies. So we are being stimulated right now as we speak, and many people are feeling a change. And there has been like a rapid exponential evolutionary development in humanity, you could say, which is, leads me to, understand now that when I went back into the material to make the webinar, I found that this information that was being disclosed actually didn't really make much sense back then, and it only seems to make sense to us now. And it's like consciousness has evolved to the point where now only these things actually make sense. Now they actually read like a roadmap to our evolution. And if we're prepared for it, if we're prepared for this influx that's coming, like if it's going to be a wave, it's going to be an event, like a really marked, solid event, not just a gradual influx, which is affecting us and making us evolve and stimulating our senses and our DNA, but that it's going to be something that's going to be really like cataclysmic, that we actually can, when we are aware of its coming, we can prepare for it, and we can prepare for it mentally as well and spiritually, so that, and this is one of the things that J-Rod was saying, we have the ability to interact with it, so that, and even heart math, the group that works with heart frequency and its connection to the Schumann frequencies has shown that it's not just one way, that we aren't just affected by things coming from the cosmos or from the Earth's magnetosphere or the Schumann frequencies, but that actually our resonance, our going into resonance, and our intention actually reverse affects it as well. So there's a conversation going on. There's a dialogue that's going on with the cosmos. We just need to be aware of it.
Earlier, you're saying, but like what I explained earlier, you're kind of describing the same thing, but to this bigger scenario.
Right, exactly. And if we know that dialogue is feasible and viable, and that we can affect the way that event is going to happen, then that's what the J-Rods were talking, that's what the P-52s were talking about. By our intention, we don't have to enter a cataclysmic event. The cataclysm can be transmuted, and we can enter this new timeline because we will change our trajectory into a totally, and they even describe it like such, virgin territory. We're going to enter into virgin timeline territory when that happens. When we actually, another analogy, in the Matrix, when Neo, that scene when they, when the Smith pops up and when Neo gets back up and then they shoot bullets at him and he just puts his hand up and the bullets stop and they drop to the ground. That was the moment that he saw through the game. And that was the moment that he had that shift in consciousness, and that changed forever. At that point, it changed the future. And so that's the kind of like thing that we have to begin to visualize as possible. And another aspect, of course, of it is for us to visualize what a new Earth might even look like, because we've only been blasted and obliterated with pictures of war and, this idea of artificial intelligence and transhumanism. We tend to have more of a negative spectrum of input coming from the mainstream, so to speak, than positive. And so it takes effort for us to begin to visualize like positive things. What do we see our positive world looking like? What is it? What do we find there? What does it look like? What kind of technology do we have? What is the social structure there? What is the, is there even a government? What is the monetary system like? If we start thinking about those things, we begin to dislodge our resonance with the consensus timeline. We haven't talked too much about that yet, but how it actually works with timelines and why would one timeline win out over another timeline. But it has a lot to do with the consensus.
I hope you get into it if you have enough time, sir, and it's all up to you. I definitely, and I know the listeners definitely appreciate you this here, and those down through time listening.
Right. Well, it's, the thing is, we are on a consensus. We all have our own timeline, and that's clear because our timeline is built upon our interaction with our immediate environment. We make decisions based on whatever input we get, and then we put back out and we get another input feedback loop. And so each of us makes decisions, and each of us can make multiple decisions for any moment. We can decide, are we going to go to the store now, or are we going to go in 10 minutes? And when we're on the way to the store, are we going to go the long way, the short way? Or when we get to the store and we see somebody we recognize, are we going to stop and have a conversation? Or are we just going to go and say hi and move into the store and go shopping? I mean, these are all little micro decisions that all make a difference on how our personal timeline plays out.
Right. And then their history, they live out their history and where they are and who they are. Here's a problem that also includes in this for me. I acted on their, I'm not going to say orders, it wasn't orders, on their steering for me to get out of Florida. How fast did my new car go? Because I attribute it back. It's like they knew. I hear laughter that I would remember what I was told about the accident. And I would laugh. Yeah, I had a Cougar now. But now I was like, how fast did it go? And I was there for months telling my wife, look, man, we got to get out of here. I was even starting to feel it in my essence for months. So she started seeing it. And then she finally decided, look, yeah, we better go. So I escaped from Florida. I went to New York. Then I had to escape from New York. But the thing is, instead of living my life where I was told to come to a destination. And it's through a code riddle like veering into the wind and how I figured that out. It told me to get the high ground. Now, I wound up in Colorado for various reasons, but it's based on hints and clues on what I was told. I'm at high ground, yes. I'm in the East Plains of Colorado. I'm a mile high above sea level, right where I am. And I'm on the plains, all right? So now there's another signature key that I had to think of it. Remember, one thing can mean more than one face of understanding, and there could be several, and they all are true and added information. High ground, well, it is definitely legal here, feel me? And then it said other things too. Survival procedure, start digging in. And then it said, asteroids, parts of former mother planet, learn farming, which I'm doing. I'm growing my own, survival procedure, my medical stuff. But I know there's much more I need to do that's attributed to that. Means my own food, especially what's going on now. I should have been digging a lot more. But let's put it this way. Time goes on. Okay, maybe I'm still in that time frame. Now, how do the asteroids? I acted on, let's put it this way. I listened to it, sir. I didn't stay there and waited to debate to figure it all out. I had to listen to it by breadcrumb. Even though I listened to it, I moved to another land that I did not want to go. I was told I can't look back. And there's another thing. The oceans will come out of their basins. How fast did my new car go? It reiterated it again. Okay. I tried to warn people. I even ran into a church and hid all day and realized that was futile. They wanted to throw me in a rubber room, but thank God they were friends. They didn't call one for me. But I left voluntarily because I had I had to sift. I had to sift in my mind. You don't know the intensity of this. And me, look, I listen to something where if I did not listen, even though if I knew more about the experiences that happened to me and just took it off as a whoop-de-doo, I got to live on, I did not live the rest of my life there as I normally would have. You feel me? I acted on, and I'm not going to say extraterrestrial, I'll just say an intelligence this code was communicating to me, which is how worlds communicate, and followed its advice, and based on faith, and I got to believe, I can't look back, and I'm on a new timeline to help secure a timeline point. I come later in years thinking about it. That's what it would have had to create for things yet to unfold, and I'm still the same person, still trying to figure out more shit of what I've been shown and told in this thing, but I think it's safe enough now, for at least for me to hopefully clear enough that you follow me in the sense of where we're going, that it wasn't just a natural thing. I listened to it. Therefore, for a purpose of which it has me to do something in the days of what is it part of this event that's coming? We have to make our fate, because something is not going to go down as it once did. I'm being used to that fact. And then I got to do that and fulfill that to validate it all, let alone all the other manifestations and evidences that did, like the asteroids. When I'm out here, my wife said to me one day, well, we're out here. What about the asteroids? We did not like where we came. Okay, I'm just going to say that, but it is what it is. We tried even a few times. There was opportunities to move out of here. It's like something just keeps on wanting us to even be in the very location where we're at. Okay, we're still here. It is. I'm living my life. But then, over Russia, kaboom. I said, holy shit. I showed my wife, my son. Here's a manifestation of evidence. It's a signature. It's real. Because asteroids, that was not just a mere, well, all right, a meteor. An asteroid's far bigger, but the boom was enough to get my attention as a signature. Would you at least, whether you believe me or not, would you at least see my mindset of consciousness of why I would attribute and connect that? And
yeah, it's awesome, because I think what you are describing is kind of like, because we're biological, organic beings, we're not machines. We receive our communication through and our information through other methods, other sources. And what you're describing to me is just simply that the universe, working in tandem with you and your soul, has provided you with specific code and information to do what you're doing. Because you are, because if we are to make this evolutionary leap, each of us has to participate in our own way. Each of us has to be listening to the messages that we're getting from the universe. We can't just keep ignoring them. So you're listening and you're acting. So it sounds very positive.
To me, then why am I scared? Or is it because of the unknown? I would ask myself.
Well, it's the unknown. Everyone's scared, because essentially it's scary. Being scared is natural. Is a natural thing. Being scared is your higher consciousness telling you, pay attention, the situation could be dangerous. Being scared in itself isn't a bad thing. Being in fear and staying in fear is a different thing altogether. But, it's like when, if you're a caveman and there's a dinosaur running at you with his jaws, chomping to kill you, and you just sit there calmly, well, you're going to be his meal. But if you get an adrenaline charge of scaredness, you're going to get off your butt and run to shelter, right? So this is just how we have to pay attention to also the chemicals in our body, the feelings that we get, the emotions that we get. These are our form of communication that are very highly refined, that a computer will never have. They try to emulate them with algorithms. The transhumanists are going to have to try to create machines which can, come close to the complex interaction between our body, between when we get information from the outside and how it manifests in terms of, we have chemicals, we have emotional things that happen, we have excitement, whatever it is that we get. And these are the things that we need to be able to express ourselves in the universe. So if we are going to make this shift, like I was saying, You are obviously positioned as a radio host and somebody who's in a place where he's probably going to be sheltered from any kind of cataclysm thing more than if he was living in a city or on a coastline. So you're listening to your inner voice. So just go with it, and don't worry about being scared.
Do you hear this shit this guy's saying? Do you hear him? I mean, remember our past conversations? It's like there was a concept that was told to me of how to keep myself sane and think of the possibilities and give me courage or whatever. Remember the movie The Terminator? What was it? Rise of the Machines? Where John Connor is brought into the mountain despite and hell with all he had to be thrown in there. And in order to be secure so he could come out of it and do what he needs to do, right? And,
right.
And they said, well, maybe my position here is kind of like that. And 2012, that's when I did reveal myself after being secreted away off the net for a few years, which gave me plenty of time out here. I admit, since I came out here, I had to adapt, but I had plenty of time to study more into this code, come to a lot of findings, that yielded results. I had to look at this.
It's Gary. It's whatever. It's whatever you make it, Gary. It's you that decides how awesome it's going to be and what it's going to turn into. You are the sole deciding factor as a creative being. You have everything within your being to be able to create an incredible thing. Anything you imagine, you can create. You can do it. We just don't realize how powerful we as beings really are. I mean, just my example, like having found that Looking Glass Guardians webpage, I could have just said, oh, that's cool, and then turned the page and kept going. But something in me, was saying, hey, look at this closer. And then I wrote about it, and look what happened. The thing just blew up, and in the course of the next few weeks, it's become a global discussion. So, and I'm just little me, and you're a little you, but all of us are also big me and big you. So we have to realize that in a way we can do miraculous things. And the more of us begin to realize that, the more we actually change the planet to the way we want it to be.
That's why I say, despite all my faults and who I am and what I am, I'm doing at least where I feel I'm being led and what I'm led to do. Like you said it earlier, because I came to the conclusion, because of the fear, damned if I do, damned if I don't. The I is still on me. What is the I? I don't know. The I down through time is still on me. And there are two sides betting against each other. And I ain't going down like that. All right? Even though I was described as being a dog who was not asked his permission, who was picked up by the nape and thrown into a pit. Now, I won't even get into the rest of that. It's not relevant. Well, it's relevant, but not for right now. Certain listeners to the show can appreciate that. But I always said that it don't matter, because each time, even what we're speaking now, sir, down through time, it's benefiting those who it's meant for them to hear. That much I'm convinced. Why? I can't remember. I just know it is for some purpose, for some reason. And the internet is a very big part of whatever's part of all this and where I'm being steered, and this code down through time and all the madness, that's my existence. I don't have a normal life. I wish I could. I I didn't answer this shit. I might have asked for it, but but even
what is the normal life anyway? Define normal life.
There you go. Exactly. Well, right. I'm not a sleeping sheep, but that's
normal is in a way adjusted, and normal being adjusted into a society which is deeply sick is not normal. It's dangerous. Yeah. And we have too many people being normal in the sense of they're just accepting the narrative that they're being fed instead of acting and changing it, so who wants to be normal? I don't know, so I think normal in the sense of more of our real essential spirituality means that we are actually considering ourselves as little creator gods, all of us, that we all have the potential that Jesus said we would have. We would be able to do greater things than even he. So that means that we have this divine spark in us, and that sense of normal, that's a healthy kind of normal. But I mean, who's at that level, right? So it's, it's up to us to distinguish between those two forms of normal and make sure that we aren't following the unconscious form of normal that's leading to sickness and disease and corrupted society and a horrible timeline future.
Dear God, and that's what I'm afraid of, because then whatever my purpose is in this is for a bigger reason, but not because of me or myself. I feel, and somehow I know or remember, I can't tell which, that there's other aspects out there, again, which reminds me of Dan Burrish and what he had to say. And it's just, I don't know what to expect. I wish I could explain this all to everybody. I wish I just had all the answers. But all I know is that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do at the moment, and more will become manifest down through time. That I'm convinced. And I have trained myself, or been trained by it, helping me shift how I think or the way I think. That would lead me to a time that when things will become clearer, then I may have the answers and or the next step and what to do. I just don't want it to be something that malevolent ones are out there doing or manipulating. I don't think I could live with myself if that is. And why is this rock thrown on me? And and will it connect to others? Well, it's connecting to you. That's not a coincidence. You have a part to play in this down through time. Just make note of it. You don't have to believe me. I'm crazy, right? But there's something going on with all this shit, sir. There's something going on with it. Now, you also said that you were wanting to get into, what was it? I'm sorry, brain farted there. Hopefully you didn't forget. Was it part of the messages, or what that was like part of? You said there was something else you wanted to bring up and said that you wanted to go to.
You mean the consensus timeline?
I think so.
Yeah. The consensus timeline needs to be understood by people, because a lot of people talk about, well, there's all these timelines out there, and there's multiple millions or billions of timelines, and it's always just going to, there's infinite amount of timelines. Yes, and that's what I was saying. We each have our individual timeline. That's the story I was telling you about going to the store. However, we've all agreed on as a kind of like a soul family that are all living here right now on this planet. We've agreed to certain commonalities, certain perceptions, which we are allowing ourselves to, which we're participating in, which is the consensus. That means we agree to certain things. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to interact with anybody, because everybody would be in their own unique, cosmos, and they only see themselves, So the consensus timeline.
Free will does play a part, and I think you're going to mention that again here. I think
exactly. Well, we have the free will to decide if we want to rest. The consensus timeline is the timeline which resonates with, which we give our attention to. In other words, we go into resonance with it. And the more we resonate with that timeline, the more it attracts us. And the less, we resonate with it, the more we open for probabilities of another potential consensus timeline to form. Now,
that's why I decided to go with it, to listen to it, because if I don't, never mind the I being on me, I will never find out why or how, because it should be impossible. Even when I'm trying to describe in all this, it should be impossible. I mean, no ifs, ands, or buts. From what we know as life, and from the never mind what we're taught, or it just seems impossible, because these are like godlike powers or god-type technologies, and I'm not a god, nor do I want to become one. You feel me? I wouldn't mind living as long as one, and I might have the chance, at least supposedly. Now, that being aside, I'm dealing with all this crap, so I'm trying to stay sane, sir, and not use this in ways that could be used as a weapon or to hurt others, though I have used it to kick someone in the ass with it. But that's about it. But only to try to get the truth, not in a malevolent way, because I don't want. Why am I being punished for something? Or I don't want to use it to where I can be punished for something. It's like, but I had the free will to listen to it. I had the free will. All right. Figure out what the high ground was, what it was meant. All right, it's a destination. This is where I'm supposed to be. I wouldn't have been able to find that out through manifestation of concrete security in my head. That's what it is, sir. if I did not have the free will to choose to follow it. And I did.
Exactly. So that's an example of how you've changed, in a sense, your timeline. And I think we have to be, when they're talking about, ultimately one timeline prevailing, it just means that the less, there's a certain window of time where you have to make decisions about whether you're going to participate in a timeline, in a trajectory that timeline is going into, or not. And it's like, if you hold off on deciding, the timeline continues along and others will join it and it'll become the prevalent timeline. And if you're on it and you don't do anything to try and change it or to try and manifest a variation of it, then you will just be sucked into that consensus timeline, and that will be the one that dominates.
Frank, but how would I know? I mean, I know by getting the heads up from this communication of intelligence down through time. I'm not getting all the answers. I'm only going on based of what I can remember from it and studying it and the various things I was told. And later on, some of the things did happen to where things did make sense, and I was able to connect those dots. I'm still on the path, but yet I still feel that
you're still doubting. So stop doubting and just kind of feel your way.
What is that? Is that natural for me? Because I can only go by, unless maybe a circumstance will happen. Oh yeah, that'll connect. That's what that. And I'm like, holy shit. At least I'm still listening. But again, I ask myself, is that a good thing? Am I a bad person? And am I going to be a bad person? What am I going to do? Because this is some scary crap, and I don't want to hurt anyone.
It's got to do with decisions, and it's got to do with commitment. So obviously you're being tested in terms of your commitment. Otherwise, you wouldn't be feeling this. Once you've committed to something, that kind of stuff tends to drop away. Not saying that permanently, but for all these decisions in life where you're on the fence, you at some point, if you don't make a decision, you just get swept into the chaos. Whereas if you do make a decision, you're taking matters into your own hands and you're directing your destiny. So obviously something's telling you to.
Yeah, so many years now. I've been here so many years now, and it's like I'm trying to be patient. And believe me, I'm from New York and from urban areas, in then South Florida, and I'm not, and where I am now and where I've been, it's because I'm trying to believe, I'm trying to have faith, and I have seen manifestations that doubt should be gone, like you just said. Right? I mean, at least to myself in that reality, whether anyone chooses to believe me, it not matters. Those listening down through time, that's important to them. That much I know, and that's what also strives me on. And then one other question, and maybe it goes to packing the Mars. Again, nothing's coincidence, Frank. What the hell does Mars have to do with this? Because you said, look at you're already set up to be like, doing this show, but I'm not only that. I'm also an independent Mars researcher. I analyze the images. I process the images. And it's like I'm 3 or 4 things in one. And I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't want to have a big head of it because, again, it's not of my own. Does that make sense? What the hell does Mars have to do with any of all this? The Martian Revelation. I didn't just come up with that name, nor did it was me that named myself Mars Revealer. It was them that titled me Mars Revealer. Mad Martian was given to me by man. Maybe you can see why. I got a joke. I have to laugh because that's, this is my reality. And again, at least people will just be entertained or get a laugh, whatever. You're all smoking anyway. And I hope you are, to help you think. Get the hand of brainwashing off your heads. Now, so.
What does Mars have to do with it?
Yes.
I mean, Mars is intimately connected with Earth. It's connected through monuments, evidence of a connection on that level, like Teotihuacan, for example, the city of the gods. The alignment is interesting because it shows us that the way those pyramid structures were, not only the way they were placed in relation to one another, but their size relationship has a direct relationship to the size of Earth compared to the size of Mars. And the whole plaza leading from the Kukulkan pyramid to the Moon pyramid, which actually should be the Earth pyramid, is like it's like the procession that led from Mars to Earth. Now, in lieu of the looking glass material and the future of that leads to the J-rods, it seems to indicate that after the cataclysm, is overcome and thousands of years go by, they leave the planet and they go to the moon and they also go to Mars. So it's quite conceivable now, in lieu of this information, that the ruins and the architectural remnants we're finding on the surface of Mars are actually remnants.
You were still right.
Remnants of ourselves that we put there in the future. Crazy idea, right?
Yes, and I'll tell you one more thing crazier. I got a signature of identity. Again, I'm going to leave all that out until until I got up at that point. They had a message. And I did ask everyone, listeners to the show can appreciate. I told it back since I was phased back in 2018 in this show, that it ain't them that's working to prevent us from knowing about them on and under the surface of Mars, but forces here on Earth working to prevent us from knowing about them. Yes, they claim the intelligence I was talking to, that it should be impossible, not hearing voices now, but following an obviously artifact, I'll just say, an intelligent thing, which is how worlds communicate, I was told. They're the Martians. Now, would they have this knowledge? Because they describe themselves as being the masters of the knowledge of the science of language. Think about those words. And this is how worlds communicate. Then calling me ambassador, whatever the hell that really means in this case. But it scares me there too, because then who are they? I know that people want us to not know about what's there to be seen. I reveal it in the details. That's how I'm able to be in this work, Frank. If you ever look at my process images compared to everyone else's, even NASA's, you'll see why. Okay? The tattoo, as it was, gets revealed. And there's a purpose there and all that. Would it be them that's also behind these looking glass missions, as it was? Andrew Bashago I've had on this show. He tells some interesting things. I know you're well aware of him, which reminds me, I got to get him back on. Maybe it would be good having him and you on together. What do you think? But
yeah.
All right, I'll try to set some up maybe next month if you're okay with that, sir, if you have the time. And
Sure.
you're willing to come back and talk with this mad Martian. But the thing is, there's something there to that. Because how could it be? At least I got it. It's like it knew, this code knew I would be asking. I'm thinking it in my mind. It's like I think something in my mind and then I'll continue on. It's like I'll get the answer, like turning a page. And I'm like, what are the odds? I was like, there's too many coincidences to be because it's not coincidence. It detailed my accident and what you wanted. It described me being mapped when I was 6 years old. It's described me when I was in my mom's womb, and there's something she told my family they always thought she was nuts about. And when on the Great South Bay, going, in Long Island, going back home where she just moved in, and I was about to be born, and this code attributed to that. So therefore I knew all the more. I knew years ago my mom wasn't lying, but to hear it, well, not hear it, but you know what I mean, like what I'm describing in this code, this intelligent communication, I'll just say, for sanity's sake, described. How would it know of my mother? How would it know of other things in my life that no one, I don't care, no one I never told, or that no one ever seen? How would it have known? How? Therefore, that's why I acted on it, and it's scary because whether good or bad, the eye's on me, and I got to do something, Frank. Otherwise, I don't want all sides laughing at me because I know I see the two sides betting. I can see them passing money. Surely no intelligent life could survive there. I'm being tested, but not just myself. We all are in that light. And that's the hard thing to bring forth and to deliver these messages as it was, which I did, the public ones. The rest is madness. Whether someone believes me or not is moot. It's those down through time. And even more so, like a scientist, we'll see if that pans out, Frank, down through time, right? And then maybe, oh, shit, I didn't know, wow, look what's, oh, wait, didn't I talk to that crazy mad Martian guy back then? Holy crap. And maybe that'll pull this more together on whatever it is that's supposed to happen, because Dan Burish also said, like you said, it was other elements. And I feel there's other elements of different things that are set up to go off at the same time as it was, at the right time, if that makes sense. Of some, again, event. And, you know, and again, then these guys, I would love to talk to these guys. I wonder if they would come on, you know, that you emailed, for shits and giggles, whether they're true or not. I think at least it motivated you. You've seen the importance, and I appreciate that. You know that, right? So wouldn't it be to give them the chance to also come on here?
Well, we'll see how things develop. You know, the communication seems to be getting more direct, so that's what their message has been. Let's see how if they deliver on it and how it evolves. Yeah, I mean, if it has to do with moving things along toward making the planet a better place, then I'm on the team.
Exactly, and that I don't remember. But I know that I gotta have faith. I gotta believe. I gotta, strive to continue on. Still stay where I am. Waste my life away. Did I follow something crazy? I should be in a rubber room. I had changed the lives and destinies of my family, of myself. Was I, you know, does it help the enemy or does it not? Well, I mean, those type of things, you know, weigh on me. In a kind of way, it's like John Connor. It's weighing on me. And either way, something's going to happen, and I'm going to find out. And I have to live. I have to follow it. I have to have the free will, since I already listened to it anyway, right? To keep going the path. I have to. And I just want you to know, and everyone else on the record and those down through time, I am scared, but I ain't going to give up. Especially that an infiltrator that comes in every show with more importance now. And again, thank you for not doing that while the guest is on. At least have respect for them, for him, and the listeners who want to hear him. Fuck with me all you want. You obviously are gonna. But it ain't going to stop me. The show is what it is. But it's more important for those down through time than it is now. That's why, when you put this out, I felt my hairs on my neck went up, sparks running up my spine as it was, a weird feeling. I have to get you on again. It was like, time to call Frank. That was the circumstance, Frank. That was cool. It's a manifestation. It was time to get you on, and hopefully, you know, again, I apologize. I didn't think I would get into any of this. It's just the way it's flowing. It's too much of a coincidence. That's what for me not to be like this. Does that make sense? So I apologize, sir. I didn't want to detract from anything, and you can still go where you want to go with things you want to get into, depending how long you want to stay. It's up to you. And but I think everyone out there is very important to hear Frank and what he has to say, and even in my madness, and because it's all leading to something. But those. Well,
I don't have too much more time, but I would appreciate it if people wanted to check out the webinar and come to my webpage and do it, because it supports me, right? I'm an independent researcher. I'm an independent filmmaker. I don't go to government grants. I don't want to compromise the integrity of the information. So everything is self-funded. So anybody who purchases a webinar or film or anything that we do, it's going directly toward the research I do, because I spend most of my time doing that. I mean, other than I have to pay the rent, and I do commercial work, and I cut films and commercials and trailers for other people as well. But my passion and my drive is toward, pushing for awakening and disclosure and bringing technology into the world to solve the problems, like you were mentioning earlier. It's about, look, we have technology's been around for over 100 years to provide us with limitless clean energy, and we don't need to be driving in cars or using lithium batteries to power our electric cars, and all these climate catastrophes which are being blamed on the human race do not have to be, because I've cleared those things up for myself already. I know they exist. The only question is, how can we get it out there to the masses? So that's why I do what I do, and that's why I have to charge money for it too sometimes so that I can sponsor it. So that's my way of sponsoring. That's my way of getting the information. That's what they call crowdfunding, really. It's, all of us pooling together. Some of us don't have the time or the effort, can put the effort in, or the ability to do the research and publish the information. And that's why there's people like me and you that do it in our own form. Yeah. Right. So, yeah, but anyone, that wants to go to my site, like frankjacob.com, for example, that's the most obvious one. If you know my name, you know my website, and on that website at the top, you'll see links to all the things, all the films, the webinar. The other site is cyberhive.tv, which is where the webinar is being hosted. And so that would really, that's all I would add. And if you want to have me on again, and if you want to include me with Andrew Bishago, then absolutely get in touch with me, Gary.
Yes, I will. I'm going to call him this week, and we'll see what's going on. I know he's had issues going on with his eyes and stuff, but that don't stop his memories and whatnot. He's sharp as a whip with names, and it's hard to refute, especially when he's directly on top of it. Even though people can understand, I can understand how people might not believe, but he's got a reason. He's got it. Boom. He's got something there for it. He's got this. He's naming names, places. I mean, that's pretty damn good. And it's hard to bring physical things into this. And but again, that asteroid blowing up was a physical thing for me, my man, as a signature of Gary. Don't give up, don't leave, because I was going to leave. If you knew where I am. But I'll just say this. Yeah, we'll definitely have that back on. Do you have any conferences or anything coming up where people could check you out also? And I will get in touch with you. I'll contact him. I'll let you know during the week what he says.
Well, at the moment, I have nothing planned for the United States. I've got a few speaking engagements in Germany. If there's any German listeners, I'm going to be pretty much speaking every day, every weekend in the month of August at a different location. So if people come to my Facebook, they'll see it there being announced. It'll probably be announced on, will it be announced on my Facebook, on my websites? I'm kind of lazy that way. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to be talking in Germany primarily. And then there's been hints of inviting me to conferences in the United States, but none of them have manifested or gelled into anything concrete yet. So I don't know yet. But then essentially that's why I did the webinar, because that's kind of like a virtual version of me doing a talk anyway.
Yes, indeed. And I don't know, I have a feeling down through time those things are going to come. Your footsteps are not your own either. I'm just going to do that. And it was a hard lesson to learn. And sometimes I still have to remember, because, human nature. And but I am apt. And I am, connected to that per se, and to that intelligence more and more. And I just got to have the balls, right? You got to have balls. You got to keep getting back up. And we'll see how my life begins once I get there. That's what I really want to see, what the hell that means. And hopefully it ain't hell. But thank you very much, Frank, for being on. Any last words or comments also that you want to get out?
Well, I can't think of anything. We've covered a lot of material. And
you did, actually.
Yeah. I just think people should, realize who they are and work on visualizing a new Earth, a new timeline that favors the organic, biological evolution of humanity, and not the transhumanist artificial intelligence timeline that is being pushed right now and is dominating the perception out there. So I believe we need to break away from that, and we need to, because we haven't really even realized our fullest potential as human beings yet. And we haven't even unlocked the capabilities that are buried within our DNA. And there is a cosmic bow plan, as J.J. Hertog calls it, for us to make this evolutionary leap. Let's not give up on it just yet before we sell out to the artificial world and transfer our consciousness to a hard drive and stick it in some sexy looking robot. Let's hold out for our fullest potential, and let's visualize that new Earth and spend some time breaking away from the distractions of the tech world, and go out into nature and visualize what we want, and start putting those pictures into our mind in whatever form we do it. Some people meditate, some people go jogging with music on and get pictures that way. Everyone has their own way of expressing it. And that will hopefully, add to the probability of us making this quantum leap of consciousness that's waiting for us to take.
Yes, sir.
And thanks for having me on.
All right, thank you, man. And definitely we'll be talking soon. And you're going to help make our fate. I guarantee it. The Martian Revelation. Again, it's not just a show name. You have a good night. Well, day. And thanks for tolerating me. And please do send me that contact if you're serious.
Will do.
I would deeply appreciate it, and I think I know it's needed, so I just hope I can get help and even more guidance. Maybe that's what was meant to happen too. So I got to look at everything. I got to play any card I could think of, as long as I'm having that faith and trying to walk the path and use my head, my own intelligence to get me there. Because I'll just say this before you go. One side of them didn't seem to really favor me. In fact, he said, "Shut up, animal." I'll just leave it at that. And we'll see what happens. But thank you very much, Frank, for joining us. And this is only beginning. So get ready, my friend. The future is going to rock.
All right.
All right. You have a good night. A good day.
You too. Ciao.
All right. All right. So everyone, there you go. Frank Jacob, the one and only. And again, since we had him on with, walking with Mars, was it? Or walking to Mars? Let me get the exact name for that. Packing for Mars. It's just that during that video, he's doing a lot of walking. But it's a lot of walking of the mind and concepts and putting you into a state of consciousness in dealing with these issues as we are packing for Mars. Like you listeners to this show know and hear each week, the madness and why I get into the news, blah, blah, blah. Again, I know I have many faults, but they're worthy, and it's meant to be put a note for the annals down through time. Because this show is not just for the listeners now, but remember, the archives get hit, okay? And those down through time, it's affecting already validated in the terms of where they're at down through time and in their reality and their consciousness to where we are on this path down through time, marching to help create for them. Look, I know this much since I was phased back. Things aren't going to go down as they once did. The enemy's here too. I said even on the first show back that things are going to be going on. It's going to transcend money and everything else. There's a purpose. In me, there's a purpose in this show to bring forth something, to help bring forth a movement or a change, the Martian Revelation, a thing, an event, the Martian Revelation. And again, it's not the all event of all things like the coming of King Holy Be Jesus or something, but it's part of a bigger plan, like Dan Barish said. It's segmented throughout our society and throughout certain people. And many people, whether they know it or not, they could be just connected to ones that are going to help at that point in time where everything comes together for its effect, to have full effect, and to do and accomplish whatever it is it's supposed to do and accomplish. See why? Look, I don't want to be some kind of Nostradamus. Why did you talk about this code more? Well, I have and I do, and it's crazy, but I'll say this. I don't want to be a Nostradamus. And I definitely don't want to be a false prophet. And I definitely don't want to be, offered the kingdoms of this earth. You see where I'm going? Surely no intelligent life there. Working both ways. Because there are people of you here that it's going to matter to. You and your children, or your children, are those down through time that are hearing this and is only part of a sequence of events like Frank said, it causes ripples. in the timeline. Once I came back in this show, we had secured the timeline. I'm still doing it to help fulfill my part into where it's supposed to be for this, whatever's supposed to happen down through time, which is where my life will begin. Again, what the fuck does that mean? I ain't getting any younger. And the John Connor aspect may come into that, and the fact of the matter of which and how I was phased back through time to begin with. As time goes on, my fingerprint of my DNA is still my fingerprint, but it changes. You get older, we all get older. And as I get older, and at times, those memories from when my other self, the same genetic fingerprint at that older age, will phase into me. I had to phase into myself, my younger genetic self, because of the fingerprint, but all the memories couldn't come. It has to deal with also the soul, the essence of who you are, because your soul is your soul. You're a match for you, no matter whether if you're 1 hour old or 100 years old. But if you were sent back when you were 5 years old, obviously you're going to get memories back pretty quick. But if you're 80 or 90 or 100 and you get sent back to when, well, you're in your early 30s. Think about it. Then memories would start coming in, phasing in, at least the ones that you're supposed to remember. Yeah, take that however you want. I don't know, but I just know it. And it pains me a lot because sometimes I see glimpses and then it's gone. What the fuck are you talking about, Gary? You high? Yes. Pack them and smoke them because you're definitely going to need them on this Martian Revelation. Remember, one side said, shut up, animal. I'm a fucking savage. Till next week.
I'm a savage. I'm a savage. I'm a savage. I'm a savage.
Brother, you with me, Mean Green? You hear me? Down! Are you on with me, Dow? Shit. I figures. You're sleeping, Dow? Vanguard?